H.R. 4 has returned to us from the Senate for final consideration. We're here to get this legislation across the finish line and to the President. It's unfortunate that the Senate was not able to execute all of President Trump's recommended rescissions. However, the bill before us still rescinds $9 billion that President Trump has identified as wasteful and unnecessary spending. Our work in this committee here today, as it relates to H.R. 4, is an exercise in restoring fiscal sanity that was robbed from the American people by the previous administration. The money that we're clawing back in this rescissions package is the people's money. We ought not to forget that. House Republicans have already detailed to the American people the billions in wasteful spending that we're attacking in this legislation. From surgical precise cuts to waste within foreign aid to halting taxpayer dollars being funneled to the ideologues at PBS and NPR, we're making good on the mandate that Americans gave us. Let me quickly remind everyone that the process we're engaging in is not some sort of flagrant and outlandish anomaly or even a stark deviation from the norm, as some may claim. The Congressional Budget and Impoundment Control Act of 1974 that Congress set up more than half a century ago allows for this process of enacting rescissions of funds to be carried out. This is the same process that has played out in previous Congresses. It's nothing new. Yes, wasteful spending does occur in Washington. The American people know this to be true, and they want to see immediate change. Republicans in the People's House are the ones who are orchestrating that change with the rescissions package and rescissions packages to come. Americans want their tax dollars to be spent prudently and not chucked carelessly at things that do not align with their values and their own fiscal sensibilities. This is not a hard concept to grasp. Republicans understand it quite well, believe me. It's time that we get the rescissions package across the finish line and secure another significant win for the American people. They're looking to us to act. With that, I look forward to today's discussion, and I now yield to the ranking member, Mr. McGovern, for any comments he wishes to make.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. And before I go to my opening remarks, I just have a question. I've been following the media reports all day today as we've been awaiting this meeting today. It's been reported that many of the Republicans on the Rules Committee are concerned about the fact that the Jeffrey Epstein issue is not going away. And we had some reporting earlier that from Jake Sherman at Punchbowl that Speaker Mike Johnson and his leadership team were discussing offering an Epstein-related resolution to try to quell the furor of members of the House Rules Committee. Then there's another report that just came out that says that there may be two bills that are being brought before the Rules Committee. One on the rescissions, the rule on the rescissions package, and then a separate rule on Epstein. But we weren't noticed about the second rule, and so I was wondering if the chair could clarify the situation and maybe share with us the language on the Epstein matter. Is it binding? Is it not? Is it? I mean, so I yield to the chair if she could help enlighten us here.
Well, as I often do, I'm concerned about the framing of your question, saying there's a furor among the Rules Committee members.
I'm reading from the press.
From the press. Yeah. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. As I said, I question the press often for the way the press people characterize things, and I don't know about the furor among the members of the committee. We'll have some time as the meeting goes on for motions, so we'll be dealing with that later.
So, but I guess my request was whether you could share with us the language of I mean, we're going to offer a motion, and I can tell you right now it's going to be the Kana-Massey bill. But I think, you know, this is an important matter, whether the chair would share with us the language so that we would have some understanding of what we're talking about here today.
Well, we'll look forward to getting your motion, and then we'll respond.
Yeah, okay. Well, we're going to require some time to be able to digest whatever it is, because, and again, in defense of the reporting that there was a furor, I mean, it is 6 o'clock, and we thought we would be meeting early this morning, so clearly there's been some angst amongst Republican members of this committee. But let me...
Don't flatter yourself too much. There's not a whole lot of angst over here.
Yeah, it's curious that we're meeting at 6 o'clock.
We're looking forward to passing the rescissions package, I can tell you that.
Yeah. So let me give my opening statement here, Madam Chair. What am I even supposed to say at this point? The way the Republican leadership is running this place is astonishingly bad. I mean, the incompetence is stunning. Trump said Republicans would pass a crypto rule in the morning yesterday, but instead you didn't pass it until midnight. Republicans held the vote open for 9 hours and 45 minutes, the longest vote in history, nearly 10 hours for what was supposed to be a 5-minute vote. I mean, how many minutes are in 5 minutes? Is that something Republicans are proud of? Holding a vote open for 10 hours so you can buy off the most extreme elements of your conference? And a nearly 10-hour vote is just the tip of the iceberg this week. Committee meetings noticed before you even know what you're meeting about, then postponed because your leadership is in some back room making God knows what secret deals. And another failed rule. How many times have we held Rules Committee hearings only to watch it all crash and burn on the House floor? Six failed rules under Speaker Mike Johnson alone, and 9 since Republicans took the majority. You know how many rules failed when I was chair of this committee? 0. You know how many rules failed under Speaker Nancy Pelosi? Also 0. I mean, this is aggravating to me because you are wasting our time. You guys are getting your whip counts from live floor votes. That's embarrassing. And it's disrespectful to us, to the process, and most of all to the people we represent. There are real crises demanding our attention, and you're wasting time playing petty games and arguing amongst yourselves. Honestly, if you were in the minority and watching this unfold, what would you say? How would you defend this unserious process? And I think we all know the answer. You would say it's embarrassing, and you would call us incompetent. And while we talk about your rescissions package, please spare us the lectures about cutting spending when this majority just added $4 trillion to the debt so you could give bigger tax breaks to billionaires. The big ugly bill you passed cost 450 times what is being saved with these rescissions. You passed your tax breaks for billionaires, and now you're pretending to pay for them. That's all this is. This bill slashes funding for public broadcasting. It guts global health programs. It undermines foreign aid, including to Ukraine. Actually, none of you even know what's fully in this. You know, we've seen the top lines, but even Republican senators are warning we won't understand the consequences until the damage is done. Make no mistake, Madam Chair, democracy is messy, but this is not the give and take of messy democracy. This is a dumpster fire. This is a tug of war between Republican incompetence and Republican extremism. And sadly, no matter which side wins, the American people lose. And finally, earlier this week, Madam Chair, I gave everyone on this committee a chance to go on record about releasing files related to Jeffrey Epstein. It was an up or down, yay or nay vote on a very simple amendment that says the Department of Justice must preserve and release all the files. That's it. And shockingly, all but one of you voted against releasing those files. The Speaker put out a statement, and I gotta love this. He put out a statement calling it an obscure stunt. I didn't realize offering amendments was obscure. I'm pretty sure we do that all the time. And when it comes to a stunt, nothing in my amendment would have prevented your crypto bills from moving forward. My amendment simply said that in addition to the crypto bills, we're also going to have a vote on releasing the Epstein files. And if it was such a stunt, why did Mr. Norman one of the most conservative members of this committee, vote with us. I commend him for doing what was right, especially as President Trump has suddenly decided that this whole thing is a hoax, that the files don't exist, and that the people who believe this stuff are, quote, weaklings. But I frankly don't get why the rest of you voted no. Why would anyone vote against releasing files that we've been told, by the way, by the President, by your Attorney General, by your Director of the FBI, by his Deputy Director? We have been told by them that these files show the identities of those who knew that Jeffrey Epstein was sexually abusing children. So I hope all of you had a chance to consult your constituents and your conscience, and I hope that you will vote with us when I again offer a simple amendment to release the files. Because either one of two things is true. Either one of two things is true. Either there's nothing here, and Trump made all this up and conned you guys into believing it. In that case, you know, why would you vote against releasing files that don't exist? Or there are files, and you guys want to keep them hidden because you're afraid what's in them. Which is it? Which is it? And with that, Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. McGovern.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Scott,
I would just like to say, I look forward to an honest, not a political debate on the issue of the Epstein files. But when you look at the definition of all the files would include a list of the victims of the Epstein crimes. Yeah. And so I look forward to the debate. Now you had your time. Oh. You put legislation in it.
You can't censor me, Mr. Scott.
You put legislation in at 3:56 when the Rules Committee meets at 4, and we were already in this room when you signed it and put it in. It was a political stunt. That's all it was, and we're going to give you a solution to it.
And if you read the amendment, Mr. Scott, you would realize that there are exceptions to protect the victims of these crimes. And by the way, our language has been out.
No, there are not. There are not.
In the Massey counter bill, there are.
That is not what you offered. That is not what you offered. You said all the files, and we have a responsibility to protect the victims.
Mr. Scott,
and we know where you are.
Yeah, we know where you are, Mr.
You're the party of child victims. That's why you opened the border. That's why you opened the border. How many children got raped coming across that border because of what the Democratic Party did?
Who voted to cover up the facts?
Okay. We have a hearing here, and we're going to follow our regular order. Thank you very much. If you, it would be better, Mr. Norman, if we just moved on and we came to you during the questioning. Would you indulge me? Would you indulge me? Thank you, Mr. Norman. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Without objection, any prepared statements our witnesses may have will be included in the record. I now welcome our only panel, Representative Diaz-Balart and Ranking Member DeLauro from the Committee on Appropriations. Your full statement will be submitted for the record, and we ask that you summarize your statement in 5 minutes. Representative Diaz-Balart, I welcome your testimony.
Madam Chairwoman, Ranking Member, and distinguished members of the committee, it's also a privilege to be with the Ranking Member of the Full Appropriation Committee, who I have the greatest respect for. I know you all have had long days and nights. That's what the Rules Committee does. I will try to be very, very brief, Madam Chairwoman. Again, thank you for this opportunity. I appear before you today to testify on the Senate Amendment H.R. 4, which is the Rescission Act of 2025. The rescission package, Madam Chairwoman, before us today is a really important step towards greater fiscal responsibility and accountability, and prudently realigns, starts a process of prudently realigning our national security priorities. The Senate amendment to H.R. 4 would rescind $9 billion, precisely as you mentioned, Madam Chairwoman, including funding for the United Nations, climate change programs, economic and development assistance, and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. In addition, distinguished members, the proposal protects, I want to repeat that, the proposal protects existing vital programs while also, as I mentioned at the beginning, refocusing programs really to their core functions, their designated core functions, including things like life-saving work, protection of American national security, the advancement of American values and prioritization and the return on investment to the American taxpayer. There's no question, as you all know, that the federal government spends way too much. And this is, again, one more effort to rein in spending, but doing so, Madam Chairwoman, responsibly, thoughtfully. I look forward to any questions in the conversation. And again, I know you've all had, as the Rules Committee always does, long, long days and nights. So with that, I look forward to the questions, and I will yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz-Balart. Ranking Member DeLauro, you're recognized.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Fox and Ranking Member McGovern, members of the committee. And it is really a pleasure for me to be on this panel with my appropriation colleague, Mr. Diaz-Balart. In addition to being a colleague, he's a friend. And we've worked together on many, many issues over the years. As in June, I remain strongly opposed to this rescission bill, which is a rubber stamp on the Trump administration's stealing from the American people. Since taking office, the Trump administration has stolen funds appropriated by Congress, passed by Republicans and Democrats in the House and in the Senate, and signed into law by the president, the law of the land. Appropriations bills are not a suggestion, they're the laws of the land. And this upends the separation of powers and our constitutional order. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7. Office of Management and Budget Director Russ Vought, the architect of the administration's efforts to subvert our power of the purse, has made it clear that he wants to end our appropriations process as we know it. According to Politico, and this was an article today, and this is a quote, Vought said he's looking to change the paradigm of the way appropriations has worked, end quote. The article continues, and I quote again, when specifically asked if he would reassure Democratic appropriators that the White House would abide by bipartisan spending agreements or commit to not using rescissions on future appropriations bills, he simply said he would not, end quote. We are on a dangerous and destructive path to degrade and usurp the authority and the prerogatives of the Congress and the Appropriations Committee. I'm afraid we are moving closer and closer to a paradigm, Mr. Vought's paradigm, where the bipartisan appropriations process is completely irrelevant. I underscore bipartisan. This is the only piece of legislation. The appropriations bills are the only pieces of legislation where you must have Democrats and Republicans, House and Senate agree before it can go to the president for a signature. If that conclusion cannot occur, the government shuts down. So he wants to make the process irrelevant, where continuing resolutions, reconciliation, and rescissions are where governing happens. The Appropriations Committee is one of the last places in Congress where bipartisan happens on the Appropriations Committee, and which we're proud of it. This bill will shut down rural television and radio stations, cutting off coverage of local news, eliminating emergency information like severe weather alerts, jeopardizing access to PBS Kids' children's programming, Sesame Street, Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. The bill rips life-saving support away from hungry, displaced, and sick people in developing countries and conflict zones, and to end programs that prevent conflict and pandemics. The bill abandons the people of Ukraine while they resist Putin's tyranny. The bill puts America last. When we retreat from the world, diplomatically and through our assistance to vulnerable people, America will be alone, without allies, in a less stable world, without the support of the international community. And do you know who will come out ahead? China, Russia, Iran. Just yesterday in the Washington Post, retired Navy Admiral William McRaven, Navy SEAL, four-star admiral, warned that cutting the State Department and USAID will put every American at risk. By the way, he's the admiral who led the effort to capture Saddam Hussein. He said, and this is his quote, and this is, I've got his article right here from the Post. I just have people read it. He says, "This is no time to weaken any element of America's power. The dismissal of highly trained diplomats at the State Department and the dismantling of USAID will jeopardize national security and make the military's job more difficult. Our nation's security has never depended on military strength alone. Rather, it relies on collaboration with a strong foreign service and diplomatic corps," end quote. This bill inexplicably carves out the Countering PRC Influence Fund, which while also cutting $500 million in disaster assistance. When people in need see supplies coming through and say, quote, USA, that shows the power of the United States. That will be traded for food aid from China. This is already happening. When Burma experienced a devastating earthquake earlier this spring, instead of the U.S. being first on the scene, China surged to help. The aid that went to people in need was marked as China aid instead of, quote, from the American people, end quote. All of this is being done in the name of combating waste. I will tell you what is waste. 500 tons of food grown by American farmers destroyed at a cost of $130,000 to American taxpayers because the chaos caused by the dismantling of USAID left it to expire. The same thing is happening to family planning and HIV prevention supplies. This is a bill to help Republicans claim they are practicing fiscal responsibility while concealing that what they are doing is ripping away health insurance from at least 17 million Americans in order to make billionaires more rich, increases our debt by almost $4 trillion. It codifies the right of the Trump administration to steal from rural and vulnerable American communities, children, and the global poor for the sake of handing more money to billionaires. Congress needs to reassert its role and its fight for the middle class, for the working class, and the vulnerable, not protect the interests of billionaires and big corporations. Strongly oppose this bill, which forfeits our global leadership, undermines our national security, and steals from the American people. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. DeLauro. Ms. Fishbach, you're recognized for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I won't belabor the point. I appreciate that we are taking up the rescissions bill. I think it's important that we move it forward. We are talking about saving money, and I recognize that there'll be a different opinion on the other side, but this is necessary when we look forward and we are in the kind of debt we are in. We need to do this, and so I appreciate you bringing the bill forward, and I am happy to support it, and I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Fishbach. Mr. McGovern, you're recognized.
Madam Chair, before I get to my questions, let me just say one other thing on the Epstein issue. Mr. Scott raised a point that he didn't get our amendment in advance. We'll provide you the amendments we're going to offer today in advance, so that, and including how it is specifically stated that there will be protections for the victims. And I think we would appreciate if you would share with us what, in fact, you're going to do, so that we have a chance to be able to digest it. Maybe, in fact, we might agree. I don't think we'd agree if it's non-binding, because then it's just a glorified press release. But I think we will make the text of our amendments available, so you can go through them, during this hearing, and any questions you have, you could then ask them. But we would appreciate you doing the same to us. And with that, let me just say, the Republican chairwoman of the Senate Appropriations Committee, Susan Collins, she said the following in opposition to this rescissions package, and I quote, she said, "The rescissions package has a big problem. Nobody really knows what program reductions are in it. That isn't because we haven't had the time to review the bill. Instead, the problem is that OMB has never provided the details that would normally be part of this process. For example, there are $2.5 billion in cuts to the Development Assistance Account, which covers everything from basic education to water and sanitation to food security. But we don't know how those programs will be affected," end quote. Again, these aren't my words. These are the words of the Republican chairwoman of the Senate Appropriations Committee. So, Mr. Diaz-Balart, I'm puzzled by this. Do you somehow have more information than the entire Republican leadership in the Senate? I mean, do you know what specific programs will be cut in this rescissions package? Or are you comfortable voting to cut billions of dollars in foreign aid, without knowing the specifics?
If I may, Madam Chairwoman, thank you, and thank you for the question. So obviously, I have the highest respect and admiration for the Honorable Chairwoman of the Senate Appropriations Committee. Let me tell you my circumstances. I actually had multiple meetings with OMB, including the head of OMB, where we discussed these issues at length. As a matter of fact, I actually was able to give him different proposals and different alternatives, and he took a number of those alternatives. Did he take 100% of those alternatives? No, because, the people are free to do what they want. But I will tell you, do I have a pretty good idea as to what this bill does? Of course I do. And remember, it's very similar to what the House already passed, and which was widely discussed. Now, let's also put another thing and put it in perspective. As the Honorable Chairwoman mentioned, and I did too in my short opening statement, we're talking about $9 billion. Mm-hmm. While $9 billion is a substantial chunk of change, there's a heck of a lot of money left over. And to reassure you, this week we passed the subcommittee legislation that funds all of these issues, foreign aid, foreign policy, et cetera, out of subcommittee. We're already in that process. I wish I could tell you that I specifically know when we'll go to full committee, but I expect to do that soon. So that process has already started, and that process is ongoing, and it's a deliberative process. I think you can expect, Mr. McGovern, as I've done already, and if we're going to continue to do, we're going to look through with a very sharp pencil, putting that bill together. This rescission package is $9 billion. And there are a lot of different areas, and if you want to speak about some specific areas, we can.
For example, I asked the question that Chairwoman Collins asked. There are $2.5 billion in cuts to the Development Assistance Account, which covers everything from basic education to water sanitation to food security. But we don't know how these programs will be affected. So is that $2.5 billion coming out of basic education? Is it coming out of water and sanitation? Is it coming out of food security? I'm just looking for the, where's it coming from? The bill also includes $500 million in cuts to global health programs. What specific programs are being cut under what global health program? Yeah, go ahead.
And I think it's a valid question. So, in fiscal year 25, the Development Assistance Program was $3.9 billion. The rescission package proposes to pull back $2.5 billion, as you just mentioned. So I don't think it's a secret that the Biden administration, unfortunately, didn't spare this area either in promoting, frankly, wasteful, radical, controversial items in this area as well. So I would tell you that the Trump administration wisely, in my opinion, paused everything and undertook a careful review, something that I think was merited. And so, Mr. McGovern, this actually caused a pipeline of funding to build up. This account was often used to support climate change programs under the guise of development programs, which is something that the American people, I think, don't support. So prior year balances can be used to support development programs that are in the national interest. And so, again, I would argue that there's adequate funding to do what we need to do once we stop doing the things that were wasteful, that were controversial, and that actually, in many cases, hurt our national security interests.
Is there a list somewhere? Because, I mean, nothing in your rescissions bill says anything about, the specifics. I mean, if you really wanted to cut those programs, wouldn't you specifically say that in your bill, that I want to cut, this line item and this particular program? I will tell you, I will agree with my colleagues here that there were some Biden-era programs that were not the most efficient use of federal dollars, and we should go back and we should maybe reevaluate them. And I'd be happy to work with my Republican colleagues on those items, but that's not what we're talking about here. I mean, this rescissions bill would pull back unobligated funds that have not yet been spent on any specific contract or program. And Trump is now president, not Biden. I don't think you're accusing, or maybe you are, accusing the Trump administration of funding woke and wasteful programs. But here's the fundamental truth. Because Republicans have issues with a few extremely small grants, they want to rip away global health programs and cut funding for public radio stations that tell Americans when there has been an earthquake, like the 7.3 magnitude quake that just hit Alaska. And for all of our districts that have been hit by devastating natural disasters or are currently going through one, let's not miss the forest, for the trees. I mean, Ranking Member DeLauro, let me ask you the same question. Do you know what specific programs are going to be cut here in this rescissions package? Because I sure as hell don't know. Yeah, well, I haven't been given a list.
Yeah, no, I think you put your finger on what the issue is. And look, I have the greatest respect. I worked very, very closely with Senator Collins, Senator Murray, as well as with Chairman Cole. But I think Senator Collins, question is appropriate. We don't know how those programs will be affected. Right. So on the development assistance side, this is really, the Office of Management and Budget really has failed in a spectacular fashion to complete the most basic function. It cannot justify this rescissions proposal. No concrete details to inform either chamber, House or Senate, about what they would choose to cut with the broad authority to devastate investments that are in this bill. They're not telling us what they will cut because they're going to cut what they want, when they want, and they do not think that you or me or Ranking Member Diaz-Balart or Chairwoman Fox or anybody in the House and Senate are the people that we represent deserve to know what is going on. It's my understanding, and I saw too in the dialogue about this, is Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota said that even though he initially opposed the bill, he would support it because he got assurances from the Trump administration they would, quote, find Green New Deal money that could be reallocated, but not a shredded detail. Now, when I talk about the public broadcasting side, I can talk about specifics because they cut all of the federal funds, all of the federal funds. By statute, 70% of federal funds for public media are awarded directly to locally owned public television stations and public radio stations. So in other words, approximately $750 million of the funds being rescinded will come from eliminating small grants to local stations and rescinding the funds. We've talked about, I think the best thing said about rescinding the funds, what Senator Murkowski said, this was the threat to public safety and emergency alerts. 7.3, you mentioned it, Mr. McGovern, 7.3 magnitude earthquake off the coast of Alaska. She noted that it was public broadcasting stations that relayed tsunami warnings that enabled local residents and summer tourists to evacuate to safe locations. So if you look at public broadcasting, they've cut everything. We haven't got a clue of what they are going to do on the development assistance side.
So I guess the answer to my question is that we don't have the specifics.
No.
And that really is troublesome to me, just as a member of the House of Representatives, a member of Congress, is because, I mean, that's what we do. And Mr. Diaz-Balart, I don't agree with you on everything, but there's lots of stuff we do have common ground on. And, you know, we fight to get funding in to bills to make sure that some of these priorities are adequately resourced. But I think that's the way it's supposed to. I think Congress should have a role in all of this. And it seems like we're just kind of handing over all these decisions to the administration. And my last question, do you know anything about this special sweetheart deal that South Dakota got? I'm calling it the Prairie Payoff. Do you know what Senator Rounds got to vote for? I mean, these little deals that are being made that I think we're going to find out, you know, in a week or 2 or 3 weeks, and we're all going to be kind of shocked that these deals were made. Look, Senator Tom Tillis said, and I quote, "I suspect we're going to find out that there are some things that we're going to regret," end quote. Roger Wicker, again, another Republican, quote, "In this situation, there's a specific amount stated that will be rescinded, but this Congress will not be allowed to choose those specific cuts. That will be done by somebody in the Office of Management and Budget in the White House. And in this situation, it will amount to the House and Senate basically saying, we concede that decision voluntarily to the executive branch," end quote. And you know, I don't think, whether it's a Democrat in the White House, Republican, that we should blindly trust any administration on these matters. I mean, we have a role here in the House, and I think we're forfeiting that role. Anyway, I don't want to belabor the point, but I don't think any of us know what the hell is going to happen. Ms. Delora, you want to add one thing?
Well, I just want to say I think you've made a very strong point. I just go back to the, you know, to the congressional power and the power of the purse. That has been abdicated here in both the House and in the Senate. And that is to Mr. Vogt's, that's what he wants to do. As I said, he is looking to this new, what he calls a new paradigm. And that what we've had for really the history here, the kind of, it is a bipartisan appropriations process. And I will fight for a bipartisan appropriations process. But he wants to make that irrelevant. So he wants to rule by continuing resolution, reconciliation, rescissions, and that's how he sees this all is all happening. And I will tell you to anyone, and I don't know what commitments he made to you, my colleague, Mr. Diaz-Balart, or what he made to Mr. Rounds, but flat out, you can't really trust him. He said he lied about PEPFAR rescissions previously in legislation. He made this promise to South Dakota. Who knows? He makes promises that he can't keep. I only know what he wants is that he wants to eviscerate the appropriations process, and he wants to concentrate that power of spending when he wants, what he wants, in the power of OMB. I will just say that if Shalonda Young had done this, my God, what an outcry there would be about what was happening here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGovern. Mr. Norman, you're recognized.
Well, thank both of you for taking time to come out. Let me just say, you know, the American people are excited about these cuts, the rescissions. You know, Mr. McGovern, it's up to you to propose your cuts. I never saw anything during the Biden administration that you proposed at any level other than more government, more and more government. And the American people are sick.
Defense cuts.
$9 billion.
A lot of them.
That I wish were far greater. Hopefully in the next rescission package, we will double that amount. And what Elon Musk has done is to reveal to the taxpayers where their money is going. I can name a list of them, starting with the $135 million to the World Health Organization, gone. $158 million to the Lebanese peacekeeping mission, gone. $3 million for the Iraqi Sesame Street, gone. $6 million for net zero cities in Mexico, gone. This is just a list. You can parse any one of them and object to them, but I've never seen, you'll spend other people's money, but you won't give the money back to the taxpayers and the economy. Mr. McGovern, you know, it's so rude for you to interrupt. This is my time.
Yeah, it's rude.
I don't interrupt you, and it's not your time. You know, you and Jerry Nadler, you know, you've never seen anybody that you don't want to interrupt. It's Not only can you not understand when two people are talking, I've never interrupted you one time, and you need to get some manners to you. But all I'll say is that what we're doing, what this president is doing, is making this country over again. The economy is showing it. Would you like to say anything?
Thank you, Mr. Norman. I just an observation. Look, and if it sounds like my colleague appropriator, Democrat appropriator, and I have disagreements, we do, but yet we have a great relationship, we do. And so we do have serious disagreements. I, however, have zero doubt of her fierce trying to protect, right, the power of the purse. And that there we agree. And so, but Mr. Norman, I may be wrong, but this rescission, yes, is to spend a little bit less money, which I think is a good thing. And by the way, this is a process that's in law. So when one may complain about, the process, but this is a process that's established in law. I don't know, and I may be wrong, I don't remember the outrage when, for example, a Democratic president decided to spend money that was neither authorized nor appropriated. And then, by the way, when the Supreme Court of the United States said that's unconstitutional, he kept doing it anyways. Now, again, I want to be respectful. I may be wrong, because you all are here all the time and you all discuss these things. So from what I'm hearing, it must be that all of you agreed during that moment that when a president spent more money that was neither authorized or appropriated by Congress, and then the Supreme Court said, hey, that's unconstitutional, and he did it anyways, I'm sure that was bipartisan outrage. Of course it must have been, right? But we know it wasn't. Here, what we're dealing with is $9 billion through a legislative legal process. You mentioned some of the issues that are cut. And I just think that this is a responsible, reasonable proposal, which is why I'm respectfully supporting it. And thank you for yielding me some of your time, sir.
Well, I'd say, too, that it's a teardrop in the ocean compared to what we owe, and where my Democrat friends are just willing to bankrupt this country and spend us into oblivion. We're not, and we're making strides, and we're going to continue to make strides. And what I was going to say earlier, Mr. McGovern keeps mentioning Epstein. During the 4 years of the Biden administration, what did we hear from them? They had information then, crickets, nothing. What did they hear on the information they buried on January 6th? Crickets, nothing. So this is a day of transparency, and it's a day that we're going to identify a lot of problems. Overspending is one of them. I look forward to many more rescission cuts, including the pocket rescissions.
Mr. Norman?
Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Norman. Ms. Scanlon, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And we do. I think everyone on this side of the aisle wants to thank Mr. Norman for his vote earlier this week in favor of releasing the Epstein files, because we think this is something that clearly already has some bipartisan support, and we think it should move forward on that basis. But we're here primarily about the rescissions package, which, with this package, I think the White House and congressional Republicans have sunk to a new low. We're here in yet another emergency rules committee hearing because the right-wing zealots and Project 2025 authors who are calling the shots in this Trump White House find democracy and the rule of law to be inconvenient barriers to their extremist agenda. So instead, they want to rule this country through a combination of fear and make-believe emergencies. This time, they're trying to cut federal funding for some uniquely impactful programs with broad bipartisan public support, including public radio and television, and global healthcare and hunger relief programs that are widely acknowledged as being critical services for local and especially rural American communities, and that are important to both our national security and our moral standing in the world, particularly with respect to the USAID programs, I hear frequently from constituents who are parts of faith groups, including our Catholic charities and colleges, our mainline congregations, our Quaker friends, as well as our local Rotary clubs and other nonprofit groups, that they value these programs and believe that they should receive more support, not less. So why are they under attack? Because the Republican Party under Trump claims that these important programs, which benefit the general public and our national security, must be cut in order to reduce the national debt. The hypocrisy is astonishing. Not even 2 weeks ago, Republicans voted on a strict party line basis to put the country $4 to $6 trillion deeper in debt, not so they could lower costs for Americans, not so they could improve Americans' health and well-being or address the existential threat of climate change, but to give the mega-rich a bigger tax cut at the expense of all other Americans. In fact, they rammed through their grotesque, big, ugly bill, knowing that it will slash health care for millions of Americans, including nursing home residents, children with disabilities, and hardworking, low-income Americans just trying to get ahead. It will end SNAP food assistance for hungry Americans, and it will repeal long overdue environmental protection measures that had already started to reduce energy costs and protect vulnerable communities. And now Republicans want to zero out funding for NPR and PBS and programs that undergird American influence abroad, ostensibly in the name of deficit reduction. This recession package is a cruel joke. The pattern is clear. The Trump administration, aided and abetted by congressional Republicans, is getting services for working Americans, shielding the powerful, and calling it fiscal responsibility. We hear lies about deficit reduction and cutting waste, fraud, and abuse, only to see Trump and the Republicans add trillions to the debt. We hear lies about making the government more efficient, and then see Republicans slash funding for some of the government's most efficient programs, while firing and defunding effective government watchdogs. We hear lies about the actions of prior administrations, only to distract from this administration's abuses and cover-ups. Meanwhile, Republicans are ignoring real areas of waste, fraud, and abuse, whether in the financial and tech sectors, at the Pentagon, or with Big Pharma, with the private prison contractors that they're paying to lock up law-abiding members of our communities, because going after that fraud, that waste, that abuse would hurt their campaign donors. And then there's the waste and abuse being committed by this administration on a daily basis. Just this week, we learned that the Trump administration is going to destroy 1 million pounds of international food aid. This is food that was produced and purchased from American farmers with taxpayer dollars, but that has been allowed to rot in warehouses because this administration blocked its distribution and then ignored warnings that it would go to waste. Let this sink in. American taxpayers are going to pay for the purchase and destruction of 1 million pounds of food that was supposed to feed 1.5 million malnourished children. This isn't just un-American, it's immoral. It violates every humanitarian norm. So what we get under Trump's Republican Party is a mountain of debt, millions losing their health care, millions going hungry, and with this bill, millions around the globe losing their lives, while here at home, American legislative agenda that screws over the American people. But when those schemes screw over the wrong Republicans, that Republican senator or member of Congress goes and begs the White House for a sweetheart deal to exempt their state or their district from whatever havoc the bill is creating nationwide. This naked influence peddling and partisanship is an astonishing breach of the principle that Congress and the White House should serve all Americans, not just their partisan allies or donors. If your Republican cuts are good for my constituents, then they should be good enough for your constituents too. Now, with the White House, the House, and the Senate under Republican control, the apparent operating theory of government is now to use the power of the federal government to benefit themselves, their friends, and families at the expense of everyone else, at the expense of the nation, and at the expense of our collective future. As we stand on the brink of our nation's 250th anniversary, it is sickening to see the damage to our American constitutional order, which was formed and has always been grounded in fairness and the rule of law. It is a disgrace. And this is a disgrace that our founders sought to prevent. They designed a constitutional system to prevent demagogues from sowing confusion, manipulating public passions, and abusing the rule of law. The separation of powers among the three branches of government is supposed to hold each branch in check, but that requires that Congress, and specifically the majority of Congress, live up to its constitutional duty instead of cowering in fear or acting the fool. And until the House and Senate majorities grow a spine, we are all of us in peril. So, Ranking Member DeLauro, the last time a rescission measure passed the House, I believe, was over 30 years ago. So it is not something that is part of our normal order of business. Can you comment at all on this rescission package and the specificity or lack thereof, and how it might compare to prior rescission packages?
Well, the point in fact is I say that the OMB director, Russ Vought, has designed a system to remove the Congress and the Appropriations Committee in this aspect, to eviscerate it, so that the power to make a decision of what amount of money will be spent, where it will be spent, how it will be spent, no matter what the Congress has directed. These are congressional directed dollars. And he has the view that he has the authority to do that. He can't do that. There's no inherent authority to do it. The rescission piece of it, yes, is a lawful process under the Impoundment Control Act, and they don't even believe, he doesn't believe in the Impoundment Control Act. But this was a way for him to codify the cuts that he would like to make, because it just doesn't like it. How we can, and that's, you know, not been the case in point blank. Look, I would be opposed to this under any administration. I fought with the Biden administration when we, and I'll be very self-serving, I moved forward to say that OMB had to let us know what money it was spending and what they were apportioning for various funds, and they had to make that public. They did not want to do that. I had this conversation, but we did it because the public has a right to know where their dollars are going. And under this process, and when we look at this rescission package, particularly on the international development assistance, we have no idea what they're doing or where they are going with this. So it is really unprecedented, but unprecedented based on a construct of Russ Vought, the OMP director, that remove appropriations, amass the power, and it's not even power for the president, I might add. He is amassing that power for himself. And that somebody who is unelected, we're going to turn over, that this body, House, Senate, turn over that power to this individual. I find that unconscionable. If I may make a couple of points, and I wanted to say that with my colleague, we agree and we disagree, as he's pointed out. But Chairman Diaz-Balart understands the value of some of these programs. He knows the value of supporting voices for democracy over authoritarianism, and that we need to keep funding long-term development and education, agriculture to support our partners, built stability over time. As he has mentioned, he funds these programs. So these programs are being gutted with this rescission, and we have to consider that. Now, my final point, and I want to, if I can, to Mr. Norman. Mr. Norman, today, this president is spending billions of dollars that is lawfully unavailable to him. Congress has not approved it. The OMB director vote has really tricked the president into spending it anyway, against the law. I would be happy to sit with you to go through this with you, and I would hope we could join together to hold him, or quite frankly, any president accountable. And I'm happy to follow up with you. That's not the issue that we are focused on here today, but it has to do with how the appropriations process works, what the agreements were in the past, what money was allocated, how it was supposed to be used. And that's the law. So I just leave it there. I hope I've answered the general.
No, I think you did. And I just wanted to clarify one more thing. So the bill before us today, this rescission package, was prepared by Russell Vought, who's the head of the Office of Management and Budget.
Right, that's right.
He also is the primary author of Project 2025,
That's
is he
right.
not? Is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, he is.
And so this package would legitimize the cuts that the Office of Management and Budget and this author of Project 2025 have made without Congress's
Well,
input.
he in Project 2025, I read it carefully.
Same.
You know, he talks about empowerment. When he went for his confirmation hearings, you know, ruled in, you know, that it was impounded, because he said empowerment is that is the inherent authority of the executive. And again, I've quoted here before, not the case. Judge Antonin Scalia opined on this. Judge Kavanaugh has opined on this, that there is no inherent authority. But I also want to be clear that the rescission piece of that, the 45-day piece, is something that does come out of the Empowerment, you know, Control Act. It is just upending both the constitutional power of the purse that the Congress has, and to eviscerate and hopefully eliminate, and for the life of me, an appropriations process. I'm going to fight to the death for the power of the Appropriations Committee, because I believe in it. I believe in what it has done and the difference it has made in a bipartisan way. I crafted deals with Tom Cole that increased the amount of money for the NIH, that funded Gear Up and TRIO and education programs that made a difference, that we looked at these areas, and we've, and also with Congressman Diaz-Balart, with what we've done. And what they did here was to carve out Egypt. They carve out certain pieces. They want to spend it in Egypt and Jordan and spend it in any way they want. But we need an obligation to Jordan to do that. They're the stabilizing force in the Middle East. But you can't pick and choose depending on who you like and who you don't like and who you support politically and don't support politically. That is not the process. We have an established process here, which is called the appropriations process, which deals with that money. And while the president can want to make changes, he needs to come back to the Congress to make those changes. That is the piece that is missing here, totally.
Well, obviously, we appreciate the work that you and Chairman Cole do with appropriations. He, of course, is a longtime member of this committee. And we appreciate the appropriations process, but I would say even behind that, we have the constitutional process pursuant to Article 1, where it's Congress that makes the laws and funds the government and not the executive. So thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Scanlon. Mr. Roy, you're recognized.
Thank the chairwoman. Just a couple of quick things, and I would ask the chairman, just real quick, if I'm correct, there are significant previous presidents have submitted rescissions in the past, including Democrat presidents such as President Clinton. True?
Yes, sir, because it is under the law. It's allowed. This is part of the legal process.
Part of the law. It's a normal part of the process.
Correct, sir.
Following the law. And so, you know, we can debate which things we choose to cut or not, but the fact is it's a normal part of the process.
Correct.
Secondly, we're talking about $9 billion, correct?
That's correct, sir.
Total outlays for the federal government this year, $7 trillion?
Approximately.
So we're talking about 0.00012 or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, 0.133%. Okay, like 0.13% or something. Yeah. So we're talking about a tiny fraction, right, of our overall spend, right?
I would agree.
So, but in the process of doing that, what we're trying to do is clean up a significant amount of the spending. Is that right?
Mr. Roy, if I may,
Yeah.
I think it doesn't pass the smell test to say that every penny that the federal government spends is well spent, obviously. But I would argue, and I think it's pretty easy to be proven right, that in particular in the last 4 years, the amount of waste and misspending was so outrageous that there needed to be a pullback. And this is an attempt to do just that.
And so, and with people have gone through various lists, and people have different priorities in life, but I can just tell you the people who sent me to Texas, sent me from Texas to Washington, they didn't want us to do $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia. They didn't want us to do $2 million for sex changes and LGBT activism in Guatemala. They didn't want me to do $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt. And look, I understand people have their priorities. They think some idea is a good idea. They go, okay, we got to help the Egyptians. Let's go help them with some tourism. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of good reasons to go to Egypt without that, but okay. But $6 million, well, that's $6 million. We're $37 trillion in debt. $45 million for DEI scholarships in Burma. I can go down a complete list of just some crazy things. $3 million for Iraqi Sesame Street. We can go down the list. These lists are public. My point being, there's a lot of stuff in here that we're trying to clean up what we're spending. Again, $9 billion out of the $7 trillion in outlays. Now, there's probably more coming. And I know that there are some concerns for that. But is Director Vogt, is he operating in any way outside of the law by doing this?
I'm glad you asked that, because at the introduction of this meeting on this issue, the Honorable Chairwoman talked about that this is established in law. This process is established in law. And I obviously have great respect for everybody here, but I will tell you, Mr. Roy, I was a little taken back because I think it is absolutely healthy to disagree, right? I was taken a little bit aback when you, the OMB director, try to disqualify a person who, by the way, Senate confirmed. Now, I may have disagreements, you may have disagreements, but I have to admit I was taken back when you try to disqualify an individual because you disagree with that individual. And I frankly have to admit, I take exception with that attitude. As well as I mentioned a little while ago, sir, this is a legal process, number one. Number two is there is a egregious violation of a president spending money neither authorized nor appropriated, and it's not me saying it, Mr. Roy. The Supreme Court of the United States said that. Where was the outrage by some of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle, Mr. Roy? And so again, to your point, yes, thank you. This is a legal process. It's fine to agree or disagree with some of the cuts, obviously. It's a legal process. Can we absorb it? Absolutely. And by the way, again, the appropriations process, which is a big part of this, has already begun.
Two more quick questions. You obviously focus a lot of your attention as an appropriator in areas such as the United Nations, World Health Organization, et cetera. My understanding is that H.R. 4 rescinds $33 million, but that's of $1.5 billion appropriated in fiscal year 2024 in the United Nations. And then it's going after things, for example, like UNRWA and programs that have been severely discredited in terms of their support for our enemies and the enemies of Israel and enemies of our allies. Do you believe that this is the sweet spot in trying to clean up some of the mess and how the dollars have been flowing overseas while still maintaining some of our engagements with these entities?
Well, again, the Secretary of State has clearly said we're going to continue to do things that are important abroad for the national security interests of the United States. We're just going to do it in a way that supports our national security interest. And not, you mentioned some of the wasteful programs. There's so many others, and we can go on for days talking about that. So you also asked the question specifically about, for example, the UN. Both in fiscal year 24 and this in the appropriations bill in fiscal year 25. And I think you might be glad to hear that in the fiscal year 26 bill that was passed out of subcommittee this week, we defund the general fund of the UN. We defund UNRWA. We defund the World Health Organization, which has become a subsidiary of the Chinese Communist Party record. Look, I just mentioned, for example, the bill fiscal year 24 and 25, the appropriations bill. I have here, and again, I respect it, but I have here in writing the press release put together by the Democratic leaders of the Appropriations Committee, and I respect their opinion. I disagree with it. And let me tell you some of the things. I've highlighted some of the things here that we, the appropriators, in the case it was my bill, right, that they complained that we were eliminating funds for. And let me just read it out loud. They were upset that we had a prohibiting funding for the Wuhan Institute of Virology, the EcoHealth Alliance, gain of function research, and any lab controlled by China, Russia, Cuba, Iran, North Korea, they say Russia twice, and Venezuela. So we have a difference in opinion. We think that funds for things like this are not only wasteful, they hurt our national security interests. If I may, I don't want to go through this ad nauseum, but for example, another thing that we were criticized for is a prohibition of funds for the government of the People's Republic of China or the Chinese Communist Party, and that we prevent lending through the international financial institutions to the People's Republic of China. If I may, also upset, not upset, they were, pointing out that they opposed cutting funds because we said no funds can be used to revoke the designation of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a foreign terrorist organization. Now, Mr. Roy, I respect that our friends on the other side of the aisle don't want to cut any spending. I respect that they believe, I guess, that everything is well spent, but I would argue that history would show us that when they are funding things that I just read for you, this is in writing, and I respect their opinion on it, and I would also argue that thinking that $9 billion rescission is going to somehow end the world, to your point, because every penny is so well spent that we shouldn't touch any of it, I would respectfully say I strongly disagree. This is a step in the right direction, and I think, hopefully, pretty soon, I hope to be able to come in front of you with the fiscal year 26 appropriations bill dealing with these issues, and hopefully, again, hopefully in that moment we can count for your support. I'm not asking for it now because you haven't seen it, but I think you might be pleased with some of those issues that we have in that bill.
Well, I thank my friend from Florida, and since the gentleman from Florida has used more than my time, I will only close by saying this because it's been so important to the people in my community, because a lot of folks here are talking about and extolling the virtues of NPR, PBS, public broadcasting, and so forth, and talked about how they're cutting their funding is somehow going to endanger communities and rural communities. Well, when the floods were hitting the people that I represent, it took NPR through Texas Public Radio 19 hours to post anything about the flooding on its social media. What was NPR and TPR doing in the interim? What were they doing in the morning at 4, 5, 6, 7 in the morning when private radio stations that I listened to and that I talked to were breaking in and presenting the information of the news? They were playing a program, a DC-based program, lobbying Congress for billions of dollars to continue their funding. When the flood hit at 4 in the morning, instead of providing local news, they were airing the morning edition of the Washington, D.C. Well, that's fine. They already had it pre-taped. I get that. But they didn't break in like the local stations did and so forth. The 7 private stations posted over 70 alerts on their social pages throughout the day, starting at 7:24 in the morning. My point being, private stations in the communities in which I live were there for the people of Texas. They were there presenting the information necessary. And the public stations were completely MIA. And with that, I yield back to the chairwoman.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. Would you like, Mr. Chairman, to enter any of that material that you read into the record?
That would be great, and I would ask that.
Without objection.
Thank you.
Mr. Neguse, you're recognized.
Well, I think the chairwoman, I do just want to say to the gentleman from Texas, who I have great respect for, and I certainly am keeping his constituents and his communities in my prayers. I will say his experience with respect to public radio and public television, vastly different than mine. I represent the state of Colorado. My district has been besieged by multiple natural disasters, flash floods, wildfires, and on every occasion, public television, public broadcasting, public radio stations, Colorado Public Television, Rocky Mountain PBS have been there. And I would take umbrage to the suggestion. I'm not going to speak for other members and their respective experiences in their districts or their states, but I will certainly say for the state of Colorado, public television has played an instrumental role in helping constituents during difficult times of need. I want to say thank you to the ranking member and to the subcommittee chairman. Welcome back. Good to have you both here. Mr. Diaz-Balart, Chairman, I want to ask you a couple of questions. So first, how much is the total dollar figure for the rescissions package?
I believe it's $9 billion. I can get you
$9 billion? Okay.
Yes.
And I think you described that, I wrote this down, as a substantial chunk of change.
I think it's a good down payment in trying to refocus.
I wrote them down earlier. So $9 billion, substantial chunk of change. Would it surprise you to learn that that is 0.12%? 0.12% of the federal budget? Would that number surprise you? Or?
I'd take your word for it, sir.
Okay. And I presume you're pursuing this rescissions, at least you've articulated it in part, it's animated by concerns about the debt and by the deficit.
Well, if I may, sir.
No, I'm just asking if it is or if it isn't. If it's not, if you have no concerns.
One of the factors. That's one of the factors.
That's a fair answer.
That's one of the factors.
I guess the question is, House Republicans, literally 15 days ago, voted for a bill that will increase the deficit by upwards of $4 trillion. $4 trillion. And your case here is that this $9 billion rescission, which you call a substantial chunk of change, that's animated by concerns for the deficit. I mean, it feels like if you were concerned about the deficit, voting against that big bill a few weeks ago would have been the right way to do it. Yes?
If I may, remember, again.
You disagree?
Well, let me tell you what I agree with, if you would allow me. Thank you. So as I said, this is to refocus an area of spending that has been misspent, severely misspent. Not only has it been misspending American taxpayer money, I would argue that it's actually been doing so in a way that in some cases has actually not only not helped our national security interests, has hurt our national security interests. So this is a multifaceted, there's many reasons why this is an important
and I'm asking
start.
You about the deficit reason. I hear you. You said that. It was a fair answer.
Correct.
You said I have multiple reasons for supporting this.
Correct, sir.
And I'm myopically focusing here on the first reason, which is you believe we should pass this rescissions package so that we can reduce the debt by $9 billion. And 15 days ago, you voted for a bill that increases the deficit by $4 trillion. You can understand why the American people would be a bit confused by that difference.
Well, look, if you're saying that this is the only thing we're going to do to reduce the deficit, that would be
what else have you all done?
That would be highly inaccurate.
Have you done anything else?
Yes, we have. As a matter of fact, one of the things I'm very proud of is that the fiscal year 24 appropriation bills, it deals with my area, right, that I chair, which, by the way, is in essence what we're under now, because as you know, we're under a CR.
CR, correct.
Right? Actually reduced 6%. This
was
is
last year.
after the
That's
negotiations.
last year.
Correct. And
Yeah, no, I'm talking about this
well,
year.
but if you'd allow me to finish. Sure. So, and the bill that I have presented that passed out of subcommittee is proposing, again, you know, we have a long way to go, 22% reduction over last year's, which was a 6% reduction. So, in other
much
words,
is that?
we are taking serious steps to reduce spending, to reduce the deficit, and equally as important is to make sure that the money that we do spend is well spent, and in this case,
I understand that
reflects
reason.
and helps the national security interests of the United States.
You've made the case on that, the secondary reason, which
Thank
we're going
you.
to talk about. But
Well, actually, it's not, to me, it's not a secondary,
not
it's a
secondary.
very important
Secondary
reason.
might be that's the wrong adjective. The
Fair
other
enough.
reason, there are
Fair
many
enough.
reasons. So, and I don't want to belabor the point here, but I mean, we could spend some time. I mean, if your argument is that if we total up the ledger, okay, so you've got, you know, $9 billion rescission here, and I guess you're citing the fiscal year 2024 cuts that you had shepherded as chairman of your subcommittee. I don't know what the total dollar number is on that, but I'm guessing that in the aggregate, if you added it all up, it wouldn't come close to the $4 trillion deficit increase that you have saddled my children and your children, your grandchildren with. And I just, again, part of this about priorities. I understand your argument about the other reasons. And so that might, you know, make the case, as you've done. But I think it's a little rich for anybody to talk about this rescissions package as a deficit reduction or debt reduction measure, because the American people are not going to take that seriously after the $4 trillion bill last week. That's all I'm saying.
And I think it's fair enough to, because I think it is obvious, right, that the majority of the spending is not discretionary. Yeah. It's mandatory spending. You know, the big beautiful bill, we can have that discussion, and I'm sure you all have had a lot, and we can continue to do that. This process, which deals with, and you're right, remember, discretionary is less than a quarter of the money spent every year, but indiscretionary, I think it's important to do what we can to spend where possible less, also to make sure that we're not misspending and that we are realigning our spending, in this case, to our national security interests and not wasting money, and that's what this would do.
Let's talk about that a bit. So because you referenced earlier that your subcommittee, I think, is in the process now of finalizing the numbers for fiscal year 2025, and we're hoping you'll be back before the rules.
2026.
26, I'm sorry. For
I know that's what
2026,
you meant.
correct. We never made it on 2024 because of the CR. So you all are in the process of that.
Yes, sir.
And I took a look at the press release that y'all issued a few days ago, and it very proudly proclaims that you are fully funding the Countering PRC Influence Fund of $400 million. That, it strikes me as something that's very important to you, right?
Yes, sir.
And you agree that it's important for our national security, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The question is, why didn't House Republicans include any provisions in the rescissions package to protect that funding?
Again, if I may.
No, it's a simple question.
No, I know. Because I do think.
The House bill that you all passed.
Correct.
Right?
We actually
before
do.
It went to the Senate.
Yes.
I'll
yes.
let you.
Yeah.
The House bill, before it went to the Senate, did not include any language protecting the Countering PRC, People's Republic of China, Influence Fund. Okay, included no language. And I'm just trying to understand, because you are proclaiming on your website that you're very proud of the $400 million, of fully funding it for next year, why wouldn't you have protected it in the rescissions package that you passed?
I don't see those two issues being mutually exclusive. By the way,
How are they not?
Because, again, hopefully, assuming we get some support for the bill, right, this is a process, we have funded it in the past. My intention would be to continue to fund it in the future, and so I don't think that's mutually exclusive.
Okay, let me walk through this.
Mm-hmm.
The PRC, the Countering PRC Influence Fund, right, is one of the funds that was identified in the $9 billion rescission. It's one of the sub-accounts, okay? So House Republicans passed this $9 billion rescissions package. and did nothing to protect that account from being zeroed out by Russell vote and the OMB.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
When it got to the Senate,
I see what you're saying.
there were some Republicans in the Senate
Okay, I see what you're saying.
who decided that it was really important. And so they added language.
Yep.
Right?
No,
Is
you're
that-
right.
am I wrong?
No,
They added
I'm,
language.
I'm glad that, okay, I see where you're going.
You got it
and
now.
I do now, okay.
We're on the same page.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I get that. By the way,
But why didn't you do it?
Because, and obviously I was mistaken, I just thought that the Senate rules that we couldn't add text under the 1974 law. And so, by the
Now
way.
that you know,
Yeah.
so from now on, when rescissions package comes in next time, you'll add language here on the front end rather than doing it on the back end?
Again, I totally support, on that aspect that you just mentioned, I totally support what the Senate did there.
Yeah.
Again, I don't claim to be an expert on Senate rules, right? And so, are there potentially, by the way, who knows, other areas that, that we would add, or I would have added language if I thought that it was okay according to the Senate rules? So I will.
What about PEPFAR?
I will always, I will never claim to be an expert on Senate rules.
Fair
and I will
enough.
tell you, do I support that language? Yes. Not only do I support it, again, it's reflected in the fiscal year 26 bill, the 24 bill, which is what we're on right now. And again, to use, and I want to be respectful, because this is not to use your language
move to a
about,
different
you think
subject.
it's rich. I also think it's rich that I was criticized by my colleagues, appropriating, who I respect, for actually the language that I just read, that hopefully will be in the record, precisely because I was so strong and continue to be so strong about making sure that money doesn't go to the PRC. No money should go to pay back the PRC, goes to international institutions. So on that,
You've answered the question.
so I agree with the Senate language.
Subject.
I agree with the Senate language.
I'm grateful you agree with the Senate language, and I guess I would just say that House Republicans had every opportunity to do that on the front end here in the House before it got to the Senate. And I think it's a bit convenient now to say, well, it's, I wasn't familiar with the rescission rules and as to whether or not we could add language to protect aid to Egypt or the PRC language or a variety of other language that was added in the Senate with respect to HIV and AIDS. But let's put that to the side. PEPFAR, because this wasn't about language, this is about funding, right? Senate made the decision to pull $400 million, the PEPFAR rescission, out of this bill. Correct?
Correct.
All right, and you support that?
I support the bill, absolutely.
I know you support the bill, but you support that the PEPFAR funding is no longer part of the rescissions bill.
Yeah, look, by the way, for the record, I support PEPFAR. And
what
we've
I'm
actually,
asking, yeah. So I'm not-
and we've
it's not-
actually had hearings on PEPFAR.
So, but if that's the case, why not
if,
support it in the House
if I
on
may,
the front end?
because do I think that we could absorb the original House language on PEPFAR? Absolutely. The Senate believes that, it's potentially safer to do it their way. It's not a huge change. So, but again, if I may, and this is not really your question, I do support PEPFAR. In the hearings that we've had, even on things that are as important that, for example, that I support, there has to be the question asked, should we do it forever? That's not what we're talking about now, but that's something that we are looking at in the appropriation bill.
Yeah, and I would say, Mr. Chairman, I'll move to a separate subject, but I just will say, that this is, I think we're getting into a game of semantics here. The PEPFAR funding is quite substantive. Most of the Republicans, overwhelming majority of the Republicans in the U.S. Senate voted against the amendment to strip PEPFAR funding out of the rescissions package. They did that not because they thought this was a less safe or more safe approach. They did it because they opposed pulling it out. They wanted the PEPFAR funding rescinded, as the vast majority of your colleagues do here in the House on the Republican side. And so I was just asking you, I'm trying to get a sense of, you say you support the program? If you support the program, then I would hope that there would be a similar effort here in the House on the front end to pull that funding from the rescissions package before it made it to the floor. But in any event, another piece of your fiscal year 2026 budget on the foreign subcommittee that you lead is around countering efforts with respect to our adversaries.
Correct.
Right. I want to get a sense, this is back of the envelope, it really is, I'm just kind of curious. How much does the budget include for fiscal year 2026, just, you know, sort of, again, back of the envelope, for countering efforts regarding Cuba?
In the 2026 bill?
Yeah. A couple $100 million or what?
No.
Or what's the?
No.
50 million
It's less. It's again. It's I believe it's about. I think it's the same as it was in the original bill in
20
fiscal.
million or what?
It's about. I want to say maybe 30, but don't quote me
Okay,
on that.
30 is good.
Let's in the
Let's
ballpark.
use that number.
In the ballpark.
So,
Yeah.
okay, here's the question. So let's say that $30 million, I understand very important to you and your constituents, and I think a lot of Americans, right? Let's say that Congress appropriates that figure, and we approve that. Do you believe that that number, the $30 billion... Million, sorry. I had to be there. $30 million for countering Cuba. Do you believe that number is a floor or a ceiling?
There is no disagreement, I think, among a lot of the appropriators that when we put the appropriation bills together, the goal is to have the administration follow that.
I hear you.
Right.
Just
So there's no disagreement on that. But the rescission process is part of the process.
I hear you. This isn't actually about the rescission.
Okay.
So I'm not. So the $30 billion.
Million.
Okay. That's going to go to the State Department to spend on countering Cuba. I'm just trying to get your sense. Is that number the floor or is it the ceiling? That's all I'm asking you. Which is it?
You're saying once it's law, whatever
once
that number
it's law,
is? Once yeah. Well, no, it's once it's law, it's law.
It's the ceiling.
It's law. Which by the way, and so look.
It's the, wait a minute, sorry, I'm not interrupting you.
Go ahead. Please.
It's the floor.
Well, no, theoretically, you're not supposed to spend above that either.
It's the floor and the ceiling.
I want to make sure I get that right. Yeah, all right, so.
Both.
Well, actually, can I tell you in the actual bill how I have it? It's the floor. In the way I have it written, no less than.
No less than.
Correct.
Perfect.
But that's how it's written in the bill on that aspect.
That's how it's written. So
on that part.
You know, that goes to whether it's Secretary of State Blinken, 2 years ago, a year ago, or whether it's Secretary of State Rubio today. Here's the money that Congress has appropriated for countering Cuba. And you cannot spend any less than this, and you are required to spend this number. Right? It is the floor. You can't, we're not going to have you spend less than that amount. Correct?
If that language holds, that's what it would be. Okay. If that language holds, that's what it would be.
Here's why. I mean, and I can glean from your reaction that it's a bit surprising on my question.
No.
And the reason why is...
I always actually appreciate your questions.
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, because here's why. You and I agree. Ranking Member Rosa DeLauro agrees. Every single Democrat, I think it's safe to say, in the House of Representatives agrees with you. Russell Vogt does not agree with you. In Politico, this is today, as he's describing the spending powers of the Congress, it is one of the most constitutional foundational principles, but that power of the purse does not mean it's a ceiling. It is not a floor. Right? OMB Director Vogt's view, which is a ludicrous view, unmoored from any kind of constitutional or statutory basis, is that if we appropriate dollars, if you appropriate $30 million to counter Cuba, very important to your constituents, Secretary Rubio can look at the document and say, I'm going to spend $10. That's how much I'm spending in fiscal year 2026, because it isn't a floor. The rest of this, I understand it's important to Mario Diaz-Balart,
but I think
to
it's
Congress, but I'm not entitled or required to spend a single dime more than what I deem necessary as the executive.
I clearly see your point. I clearly see your point.
And you disagree with him?
Well, no. Oh, no. Wait, hold on. It's very important to make a important observation, which is it's dependent. It depends how it's written. In some cases, We give flexibility. In some cases, we say not less. In some cases, we say not more. So I just want to make sure that we make the point
I agree with that
that
caveat.
it's a little bit of a generalized statement, and I just want to make sure that we're accurate in what we're saying.
But what your staff had just handed you.
In that case, in that specific case, then I would agree with you.
I appreciate that. And I will just venture to say that I have one last question, but I will venture to say that quote there might end up in a lawsuit here in the next couple of weeks, because the administration, as you know, we're deep in litigation now.
Yes.
Over impoundment. I appreciate the chairwoman. I will, you know, I just have one question. You represent. Well, Mr. Diaz-Balart. Well, I agree with you on the answer part. I don't know about the question, but I hear you. I'm trying to get to it, Madam Chair. I appreciate your indulgence. I just want to talk a bit. I'm trying to look for the piece of paper here. Here it is. You represent South Florida, town of Miami Lakes.
Among others, yes.
Among others. And the town of Miami Lakes, my understanding is getting a new zip code because of your efforts. You're working on it.
Working on it, yes, sir.
House is going to vote on a bill soon.
Hopefully.
Very exciting. I know how important that is to communities in my neck of the woods. You know, I was looking online. Do you know how I discovered that the town of Miami Lakes was getting a new zip code potentially because of your efforts? I was looking at WLRN. It's the only publication I could find that would print a story about your efforts regarding a new zip code for the town of Miami Lakes. WLRN is a public affiliated station, right?
Yes, I believe so.
It is,
I believe
can
so.
assure you. It's public television.
Okay.
These cuts are going to be devastating. They're going to be really devastating to public television, to public radio in every state in the country, including in Florida and, of course, in Colorado. It's a shame. I wish you all would reverse.
Could I just put one just little clarification? In South Florida, there are numerous local publications, which you know, we have, for example, the community newspapers. That's in all the communities. Just so you know, just to make you feel comfortable, there are numerous private publications that cover what happens in D.C. locally, and so I hope you feel reassured
none of them
that
about
that's
the zip
not
code.
the only one.
None of them about your legislative efforts on the zip code, except for public radio. I yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Scott, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Congressman Diaz-Villar, I do have I don't remember exactly. Did the Inflation Reduction Act money, did that go through the appropriations process and the American Rescue Plan?
No.
It did not go through the appropriations process,
No, sir.
did it? I didn't think it did, and I just listened to. But it did not go through appropriations.
Correct, sir.
Right, and it went through without a single Republican vote. Both of them did.
Correct, sir.
Correct? We're on the same page. All right. So I'm looking at these numbers. I know you may not have the exact numbers year to date, but right now I'm looking, and it says that the federal government has spent $5.345 trillion year to date. Now that would include mandatory spending and other things, but the second largest category of spending right now is the interest on the national debt. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, sir.
That's what it says
Yep.
anyway here. Would you be surprised to know that federal spending is up $318 billion this year over last year?
That unfortunately does not surprise me.
So when we talk about an $9 billion cut right here in this piece of legislation, is that correct? That's it. Okay, $9 billion. So if we just use these numbers here, so total federal spending is up $318 billion. If we take this $8 billion, total federal spending is still up $310 billion instead of $318 billion. I'll be honest with you. I'm a little taken back at the whining and crying over what amounts to less than 0.5% of discretionary spending. And I'm a little embarrassed, candidly, that with Republicans in control of the House, the Senate, and the White House, that we can't actually cut a little more. And I just hope we're able to continue to show the American taxpayers where their dollars have been going We showed them tremendous sums of waste, fraud, and abuse over the last several months. I hope that we're able to get back to showing the American taxpayers where their dollars have been going, and that we're actually able to come back with a rescissions package that does significantly more than the $9 billion. And again, I want the American citizens to know, total federal spending this year from last year up $318 billion. Now, you would think the sky was falling and the sun wasn't going to come up tomorrow if you listen to all of the whining and crying. But just factually speaking, if you take this rescission of $9 billion out of the $318 billion increase over last year, you still got a $310 billion increase in federal spending. That's year to date, by the way. It will be more than that at the end of the fiscal year. We got to do a better job of reducing the deficit and getting economic growth. And if we don't, the interest cost is going to consume the majority of federal spending in the near future. And with that, Madam Chair, I don't have any questions for the gentleman. I just wanted to make the point, this is a drop in the bucket, and we're just getting started on reducing the deficit in this country. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Ms. Leisure-Fernandez, you're recognized.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that very understanding look in your eyes as you recognized me. You know, and as I listen to this conversation and the comments, it just gets me every single time. When they talk about the need to reduce federal spending, the need to address deficits, anybody who voted for that big, ugly bill that is now law, which increases the deficit by $4 trillion, should feel ashamed about talking about deficit spending and debt. It's $4 trillion. $4 trillion. The interest rate is taking it up to that and even more. And that's why when they talk about attacking waste, fraud, and abuse to save American money, those are meaningless words after you voted for that bill. Those are meaningless words. When, in addition to increasing the deficit, the main beneficiaries of that bill were the billionaires. That is waste. Because the reality is they don't need the money. And it was pointed out earlier that the Trump administration is burning 500 tons of food that went to waste instead of feeding the hungry. And since his inauguration as president, Trump has made millions off of his presidency. He's made more than $320 million in fees alone from his meme coin, and now he's exempt from regulation. No president in history has ever made so much money selling his presidency and influence, ever. So when we talk about fraud and abuse, let's talk about that kind of waste, fraud, and abuse, because what I see it as destruction, deception, and corruption. So in this bill, we see Republicans once again taking away from the poor and rural areas. So when I hear my colleague who's now left saying they shouldn't, why are they whining about this $9 billion? It's because I know the places that are going to suffer when they lose NPR, PBS, and public broadcasting stations, because it's the local stations that are going to be hurt the most. And you know, they keep doing it. Republican bills and DOGE and Trump want to destroy public education, public health care, public lands, and now public broadcasting. So let's talk a bit about public broadcasting. We heard earlier today that Americans really want and are looking forward to us cutting public broadcasting. Do you agree with that, Representative Diaz-Balart?
Can you please repeat that?
So earlier today in this hearing, I believe it was Representative Norman, said this is what Americans really want. They want us to cut the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Do you agree with that?
don't know if he quite said that, but he may have. I do agree that there has been, like in unfortunate other parts of the government, a lot of waste, a lot of misuse. There was, which I did not participate in, but I watched part of it on, you know, on the TV while I was in this process, where there was a hearing on that, and it was pretty evident that there has been a lot of waste, a lot of misuse, and I think that's part of the reason why this is, that's part of the reason that's why this is here.
Yeah, do you think Americans want you to do these cuts?
I do think that there are multiple alternatives, private sector alternatives. You know, when I was a child, there were only a couple channels. Now there are hundreds or thousands of channels. Yeah. And I think there is a valid question as whether the taxpayer, when there are hundreds, if not thousands of channels. The
question was about whether Americans want this. And let me tell you what it looks like what Americans want. So 1 in 3 Americans use public radio at least once a week. 70% of public radio is considered, Americans think, 70% of Americans think public radio provides a valuable service, and you might be interested in that. That includes 64% of Republicans. They trust the news from public radio. 3 in 4 Americans agree it's important to have public radio for emergency alerts and public safety. And this is a poll that was done recently, because people recognize the importance of public radio and public broadcasting. And they recognize the importance of it because these rural radio stations, especially, and let me tell you, Republican states, they rely on it. Alaska. If you go and read the news, in Alaska, they rely on it. In New Mexico, our tribal radio stations are essential because some of those places, there aren't the alternatives that you mentioned, or they aren't for free. And that's the importance of public. That's the importance of the public. So we know that there was a desire by Senator Rounds to preserve tribal broadcasting. Can you tell me where in the bill? He said he's voting for this bill because they're going to preserve funding for tribal broadcasting. Can you tell me where in the bill there is the preservation for tribal public broadcasting?
Let me see if I can get you some specifics on that. I would, by the way, respectfully mention that when you're saying that it is so popular and there's so much audience, great. And then the question, I think there's a valid question as to, well, then why should the taxpayer have to pay for it? And I just, again, respectfully, when you say it's not for free, it's not free. It's being paid for by the taxpayer. When government provides a service, not only is it not free, usually it costs a lot more than when the private sector provides it. So, and again, very respectfully, I just think that's a little bit of kind of highlights kind of the disagreement. When you say government programs are free, I would respectfully say government programs are not free. And what we can show time and time again is usually government programs are a lot more expensive than those that are provided by the private sector. So respectfully, I think that's part of the disagreement.
There is a disagreement not on whether who is it free for? And that's the purpose of public. That is precisely the purpose of public. And it is an ideological difference. I agree with you. That when you talk about everything being for profit and profit making, that means you are going to be inserting profit in everything they do. And that is the difference. We heard in this committee, they shouldn't worry about Sesame Street and these important public programs because they're going to get picked up by Netflix. That is not free to the family that cannot afford it. So I'm talking about free for everybody in the public. And there are, and so that was what I was saying, is who are they free to? And I think that it is important to have public education, even though there are private schools. I think it is important to have public transportation, even though you can have toll roads and you can have your own private car. There are certain goods that are important that are key, and that's why somebody in a Republican state like Alaska voted against that. And so was there anywhere in the bill that
I have an answer.
protected?
Not that I can find. I cannot find anything in the bill that specifically protects what you were asking.
Right, because there's nowhere in the bill that protects these kinds of services. There are all these deals made, and then there's these pinky promises that, oh, we're going to protect tribal radio. And I think that that's what's really key, is with regards to tribal radio, they understand that. I have a letter here from the National Congress of American Indian, and what they say is enactment of H.R. 4 and eliminating the Corporation for Public Broadcasting funding would devastate tribal communities by severely impacting tribal broadcast capacity and essential tribal public safety infrastructure that protects communities during emergencies. It would put tribal lives at greater risk. Madam Chair, I request unanimous consent to enter into the record the letter from the National Congress of American Indians stating this, and it is dated. I need to make sure.
It's okay. You're going to hand it in. We'll get it.
June 10th, 2025. Well, you know, some people are strict on this, and I admire the requirement to actually have that data here, Madam Chair.
Without objection.
And this is the point that I am making, is that there are things that are about emergencies, that are about the public, that are key, and that I think are important. So if you think people should just pay for everything and there should always be a profit motive, that is honestly a disagreement we have about how we look at things. Because I do think that we should not be having those kinds of problems. And, you know, the emergency alerts, there is nothing in this bill that would protect your beloved communities who might be relying on the multiple sources of public radio and public television that you also just pointed out, is there?
Again, and that's why I want to make sure I'm accurate with my answers, and so I got you that specific. There's no doubt that there are, and because I do live in an area that's obviously prone to storms, right? And there are, fortunately, and of course, with the caveat or the understanding that I happen to live in one of the states that's the most prepared for, you know, hurricanes for obvious reasons. There are multiple ways that people get that information. And I'm speaking for the state of Florida.
You're speaking for the state of Florida, and this is the thing, is as it was pointed out for Colorado, as we've heard, and if you go and pull Kansas, the people in Kansas are terrified because they rely on these programs. The people of New Mexico know that the public radio stations are essential. We just heard about the important role they play in Colorado. Not everywhere is densely populated with multiple avenues. And that's the other thing about the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the educational programs that are available for free. I was reading an article online about a Kansas grandmother who said, my days are filled because I can see the Antique Roadshow, but more importantly, my grandchildren learned how to count with Count Dracula. Right? Who in this room, I mean, I'll ask around, is like, did any of your kids watch Sesame Street? I'm looking, Mr. Jack, Representative Griffith, you always have, none of your kids did. Well, you are probably the exception, because so many others did. In the audience, everyone raised their hands who, you know, oh, look at the smiles on their faces that are coming up, because people do look at these things. And, you know, we fell in love with Sesame Street. We fell in love with the kindness and understanding shared among the characters. And I think that this idea of keeping kindness and generosity in our public arena and as one of the public goods that we do is so key. And that is what the public television programs do. Think about that. Think about how kind. Like even Grouch, the Grouch, right? Oscar, like everybody's nice to Oscar and helps him get through these things. Right? We need us all to see, like, maybe we're a little too grouchy sometimes because of this role we play. But, like, if you step into that role of what Sesame Street cheats, it's let me understand why you're grouchy, and maybe I can understand that, right? But right now, you know, all these rescissions, they're sort of like the Cookie Monster. Like the Cookie Monster, you know, he's eating caviar instead of cookies because, you know, we're giving all these tax benefits to the billionaires and we're eating up the public good and we're eating up kindness and generosity and things that are free to the people who most need them. Representative Diaz-Balart, and that's what I was talking about.
And I thank the gentlelady, but again, I just remind everybody respectfully, it's not free. It's very expensive.
The taxpayers are doing it, and that's
Correct.
the question. And the taxpayers pay for a lot of things. We just in that big ugly bill, you actually cut royalty rates for oil and gas companies. You cut them by about 4%, down to 12%, which gave away millions of dollars, which gave away more than the $1 billion that you're cutting from this. And let me tell you, there was no need to do that. We have record oil and gas profits, and in the state of New Mexico, we have twice the royalty rate now, 25%. Record sales on our latest lease. So it's all who's paying for it? The decisions you made in that bill where that big bird didn't deserve it, the people who cannot afford to stream and pay for Netflix didn't deserve it, but oil and gas companies deserve it. It's never free. But we gave away some freebies to the oil and gas industry. Representative Lauro, the Trump administration, this life-saving nutritional aid, was it about 1.5 children could have been fed with that for a week?
It's unbelievable, rotting in a storage space because no delivery mechanism put together because it's been shuttered. So.
And is that, do you consider that, Representative Diaz-Balart, the idea that we would let that much food go, is that waste in your mind?
I think that was highly unfortunate, and frankly, something that I would never try to justify.
It's waste, and that's not a good use. That is like wasting taxpayer dollars. You know,
why is that not considered waste?
There is a cost to that. There is a cost. So I wanted to just go and quickly because I don't want to get tagged by our wonderful chairwoman here. So as you were having all of this discussion of why it's important to do this, now, as I understand, when you work on the appropriations in your subcommittee, it's not easy. You have hearings, you have discussions, you debate it among yourself, you bring it administration, you do all of that. Is that correct, Representative Diaz-Balart?
I would agree with you, yes, and I would agree with you. No, it's not easy.
Right, it's not easy. So
I think they're the ranking member, full committee ranking member, and I are in full agreement.
You're in full agreement. And so, did you have the same kind of debate about this rescission package?
No.
I met multiple times with ONB, but
Did your committee meet?
And we actually had a committee meeting where we had folks come in, and was
there a hearing on the rescission?
But obviously it clearly doesn't have the same level. I would concede that it's not at the same level that having multiple hearings, which is what we try to do in the Appropriations Committee. So I love the Appropriations Committee. So I believe that the appropriations process is the best process, but I will tell you that we did have folks from the administration come in 2 hearings.
And you were the subcommittee chair when this budget, because you were the subcommittee chair last year, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And right now, by the stroke of a pen from the president, all that work that went into that thing is gone. Is that ranking member? This is your point, right?
This is my point. We hammered out appropriations bills, and appropriations bills are $1.7 trillion every single year. And to get there, you have to give a little, and you have to get a little. And you go back and forth to meet the needs of the people that we represent through these 12 subcommittees.
And the
And
reason...
you hammered it out, and then we come to an agreement. We get it signed by the President of the United States, not a suggestion, a law of the land. And in this circumstances, I will just say that we had an unelected individual, a billionaire, and Elon Musk, decide what was going to be spent, how it was going to be spent, what was going to be cut. By what authority? None. Zero authority to take $425 billion, which we tracked in the 12 subcommittees, that they either froze, terminated, or paused in some way. That's not what we do here. That's not the process. We can hammer out stuff. You know, the chairman will say, look, we can't go here. But, you know, I'll say, well, maybe we could go there. How do we come to a meeting of the minds? That is done every day with the Appropriations Committee. And it has been done over the years. And that is what is being abrogated.
And that is all of that, once again, going back to what is public. Your hearings are public.
Public,
Our
absolutely.
debates are public. And what you had here was perhaps a private meeting. Was that?
we had-
did you
We
have
actually,
a public, did you have a public hearing?
yes, we did.
Did you have a ranking member? There seems to be
hearings on the
disagreement
rescission
on that.
The
We
subcommittee.
had no hearings on the rescission package.
No hearings on this.
None.
And that's it.
Can I want to make sure that I'm accurate. No, we had hearings and meetings regarding what the administration was doing, not specifically on the rescission
That's on
package.
So you had
appropriations.
no hearing.
We have hearings on appropriations,
Because
but none
because
on
the
rescission package.
because the law, which is being followed, the 1974 law, created this process of rescissions. Now, I would, by the way, agree with I think both of you.
You have to come
I
back
like-
to the Congress.
Congressional process, but I would also argue that there has been so much misspent money that this is why the administration felt obligated to do this rescission
Well, you
package.
can't willy-nilly do that. I just have to say this. No, the 45 days, yes, is legal. They're abusing and in violation of the Impoundment Control Act, but the 45 days is legal. However, that says you have to come back and say to the Congress, this is what I want to do, and you have to have a process that follows that. None, zero, nada. Oh, no, this is not the hearing.
I mean, I feel for you because you guys have worked so hard, and with a very quick, darn and dirty, it's going to be gone. Thank you, Madam Chair. With that, I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Ledger Fernandez. Mr. Griffith, you're recognized.
Madam Chair, I could probably go on for hours in disagreement, but I gave a too long, as my colleagues pointed out, a too long soliloquy the last time we had the rescissions package up. I will just note it was kind of fun to listen. My staff hates it, my wife hates it, but I have this thing about music lyrics that just pop in my head. So Billy Hill, who wrote The Glory of Love, and Benny Goodman, who originally recorded it, would have loved your reference, ranking member, when you said you've got to give a little and you've got to get a little. It comes from that song as an original piece of musical artwork. And with that, Madam Chair, I yield back.
I always enjoy listening
No,
to
I
you.
was saying that.
I do too, and now you're going to make me have that song in my head too.
Gotta give a
Mr.
little,
Jack.
take a little.
No, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just, as the freshman, I'm always the last member to ask questions. But if I could, Chairman Diaz-Balart, just give you an opportunity to offer a closing statement, a closing kind of message as it relates to why it's so important to codify these rescission.
Well, I appreciate it, and I'll be brief. By the way, just for the record also, if I may, I was just, Mr. Neguse said that the only, outlet that covered the zip code, it was also covered by Florida Politics, it was covered by Florida Daily, it was
Television,
covered,
public television.
it was covered from Miami Laker. So I'm just saying that there's other avenues, and I just wanted to make sure that that was in the record.
None of those are television.
there are multiple outlets. Thank you, sir. Look, we've discussed this enough. Where I totally agree with the ranking member is that, to me, the best process is the appropriations process, and which is what we're starting to do it. But it would be, frankly, just not serious to not understand that, in particular in the last 4 years, the amount of money that was spent and wasted was just really offensive. And I know that there's so much concern about the administration using a legal process established in law to come up with $9 billion worth of reductions. But I don't remember the outrage, and I repeat this, but I think it's an important note. I do not remember the outrage about the abuse of process when the previous president spent money, as I recall, that was neither authorized nor appropriated, and the Supreme Court said it's unconstitutional, and he continued to do it. And there was no outrage then. Getting back, however, to this particular issue. It's a $9 billion rescission. It went through the House. I think the Senate refined it, which is part of this process. It's in front of us today. Do I think that cutting $9 billion to make sure that we are spending money wisely is too severe of a cut? Absolutely not. Do I think this is a step in the right direction? Absolutely. Do I agree with some of my colleagues that I think all of us would like to get back to, again, the appropriations process? And the good news that under the leadership of Tom Cole, and yes, the full committee ranking member, we are working through that process as we speak. But for the issue at hand, a $9 billion rescission to get us back on track, to make sure that we are spending wisely, that we are spending without wasting money, is a good step in the right direction. So thank you for the opportunity. I think this is something that merits our support, our vote, and I would ask for your support. And thank all of you who serve on this committee for the work that you do for the American people.
I yield back. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Jack. Mr. Langworthy.
Thank you, Madam
recognized.
Chair. I appreciate the recognition. Madam Chair, and I want to thank the chairman and the ranking member for being here. We have hardworking Americans across this country in all of our districts that have had to face real difficult financial decisions every day, and especially the inflation they've suffered for under the last 5 years or so. They've had to cut back in their households on groceries, car expenses, home repairs that they could put off. Families don't have the luxury of wasting money, and they expect us here in Washington at the Capitol to live by that same standard. Yet here we're debating whether or not we should be reclaiming for them $9.5 billion of unspent and unnecessary funds that are just sitting in government accounts. Mr. Diaz-Balart, how do you see this rescissions package putting taxpayers first, not only by cutting wasteful spending now, but also by setting the precedent that Congress will once again be a responsible steward of hard-earned taxpayer dollars going forward?
Thank you, sir. As I said at the beginning, I think this is a prudent, this $9 billion package is a prudent realignment of priorities and spending less money. And I hope, and I am confident, because I'm confident particularly in the leadership of Chairman Tom Cole, who you all know very well in this committee, that we are going to be able to continue, again, through the appropriations process, making sure that we spend money wisely, that we save money as well in areas where we can save money, and I think there are a number of areas. And if we talk about the area that Chairman Cole has put me in giving me the responsibility and the privilege of chairing that subcommittee, as I mentioned before, you're going to see the bill that passed out of subcommittee, a 22% reduction, while I strongly believe, we are doing more to confront the adversaries of the United States. We are fulfilling our obligation to our allies, but we're doing so without wasting money and making sure that it is aligned with the national security interests of the United States. And so that process is ongoing. This, and again, I respect folks who don't want to cut anything. I get that, or who don't like the specific cuts in this proposal. I get that as well. I respect that. But I think it's important to mention, once again, that this is within the law that was passed by Congress in 1974. And so again, I think what we're looking at here is an important step in that realignment to make sure that the money, particularly in the area that I'm directly responsible, which is, again, foreign policy, that it is aligned with our national security interests, our national interests, and that, in my view, is, again, supporting our allies without wasting money, confronting our adversaries, but making sure that we do it in a way that is fiscally responsible. It can be done. Sir, a little while ago, I talked about, I'm very proud of the bill that we're in right now, the CR. I wish we weren't under a CR, but we are. But that bill actually cut 6%, spends 6% less than the previous year. And I heard all these horror things that were going to happen. No, on the contrary. When you spend less taxpayer money, you do it efficiently, and you fulfill your obligations, everybody wins. This today is a step in that direction.
Well, thank you very much for your commentary and for all your hard work on behalf of the American people and for everyone on the Appropriations Committee and for what you do. And it's really hard work. The reality is most taxpayers don't even know where their hard-earned tax dollars are going. The size and the scope of the federal government is beyond most Americans' mindset. And I think what we've been through in the last 6 or 7 months has been quite a experience in accounting and accountability and shining a bright light on some things that people assumed were happening with programs and weren't. I mean, it's certainly been educational for even members of Congress, some of the things that have been uncovered at the front end of the year. So I really, truly believe that this is a step in the right direction. This is important legislation and a priority to set going forward. And with that, I yield back, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Langworthy. I have just one or two questions I'd like to ask and a couple of comments. I want to thank you, Mr. Diaz-Balart, particularly. I thank the ranking member for being here, too. But I want to thank you for saying that, quote, government programs are not free. Those programs are paid for by hardworking taxpayers. I make that point all the time. The money that the federal government spends is not manna from heaven. It is taken from hardworking taxpayers. And there's a lot of talk going on now about recent elections in New York, about how there is going to be an increase in government spending. And I think we do have a term for that in terms of taking money from some and giving it to others. And I agree with President Trump that that's generally defined as communism. And yes, there is a common good, but the American people are the most generous people in the world, and they are willing to help others who need their help. And we've seen that over and over and over again. So there's generosity for public good. I've given contributions to public radio and public TV, but I don't think it's fair to take money from some to give it to those programs. I just want to get one major thing in the record. We're hearing a lot about these horrible, what's happening to the government in terms of the horrible increase of $4 trillion that was just passed in the big, beautiful bill. But I haven't heard anybody talk about, or maybe I think Mr. Scott touched on it before. Please tell us how much was spent under President Biden with not one single Republican vote, and how much was added to the debt as a result of the reconciliation bill passed by Democrats and President Biden.
And again, I want to make sure that I have an accurate response to it. I will get you the exact number, but I think, to your point, it was so much money that it actually created the largest spike in inflation in decades, precisely because of the amount of money that was spent. And I will get, I think, I want to make sure.
I have it.
You probably do, and I want to make sure I'm accurate.
I think it was $11 trillion that was spent under President Biden, and $6 trillion was added to the debt.
And there is no argument and no debate that inflation skyrocketed for the first time since, I believe, the Jimmy Carter administration.
That's correct.
And by the way, that is not, you want to know, I have tried to be very accurate in answering questions, and I think the questions are important. And I also tried to avoid getting into other subject matter. But since it was brought up so many times, in the district that I represent, if the big, beautiful bill had not passed and become law, and I don't represent a wealthy district, the tax increase to the average family in the district that I represent was going to be 24%. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else seeking to testify on the Senate amendment to H.R. 4?
Madam Chair, may I say something? I'm here to
Thank you,
testify.
Ms. Delora. I don't have any questions for you.
No, I don't want to, I wasn't asking a question. I was asking if I can say something. I'm here testifying as well.
Well, I think we've gone way over with your side, so thank you very much. Seeing none, this closes the hearing portion of our meeting.
Speaks volumes about what we do. Oh, I do want to see if I can put it in the record.
Without
William McCraven,
objection.
cutting the State Department and USAID will put every American at risk. Russ vote appropriations process has to be less bipartisan. I think it speaks volumes of where this administration wants to take us.
Without objection.
Thank you.
Without objection, the committee stands in recess for 10 minutes or so. How long has it been?
Got like
How long
2
have we
minutes.
been out?
8 minutes.
Okay. The committee will reconvene. The chair will be in the receipt of a motion
Madam
from
Chair.
the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Scott.
Madam Chair, I move the committee grant a rule providing that House Resolution 589 is hereby adopted.
Thank you very much. You've heard the motion. Is there any discussion or amendment to
Yes.
the rule?
Yes.
Mr. McGovern, you're recognized.
First of all, let me just ask a question. Where's the rule on the bill that we just took testimony on? We've taken no testimony on this. We've had no discussion of this. I'm just wondering, where's the other rule?
That will be coming shortly.
So let me just say for the record, Madam Chair, and to all my colleagues here, I've been here for a while on this committee. I was here as a staffer as well. This is the worst process I have ever seen in my life. The rule in front of us, and I have to say, the meaningless resolution that came out of thin air was never noticed. I mean, I'm still going through it. There's some language in here that I don't like, but I mean, but at the end of the day, and I look at it, and while it looks like a bill, it isn't. It's a resolution, a non-binding resolution. This is a smokescreen. It is a glorified press release. And if you want to put this on the floor, fine. I think we would all welcome an hour of debate on this topic because the American people want us to be talking about this. They're quite frankly very disappointed that after all of the years of Trump and his Attorney General and his now head of the FBI hyping this conspiracy theory up, they want to have a full debate on this. But I have a couple of questions about the resolution, and maybe Madam Chair or maybe Mr. Norman, whoever wants to answer them can. But does this have the force of law?
Democrats are so desperate to use the serious issue of sex trafficking to score political points. They're speaking out both sides of your mouths almost in real time. And we really don't have any tolerance for attacks on the resolution. It's a sound, good faith resolution that ensures protections for victims and innocent witnesses. If your qualm is that this is a resolution and not a bill, then why did you all offer Representative Veazey's resolution just 3 nights ago? You weren't attacking resolutions and their force or effect just nights ago. Democrats are now attacking the same type of vehicle they supported on Monday night. This resolution sends a clear signal and carries considerable weight to the full scope of this debate.
So for those watching at home, the answer is no. And just let me respond with a couple of things. One, we tried to offer you an amendment that would have done something, and you rejected it. Then we offered a non-binding option, which you also rejected. Two, a bill didn't exist then. A bipartisan bill currently does exist by Mr. Khanna and Mr. Massey. So a non-binding resolution wasn't good enough for you a week ago, but now there's a bill available. You take it. You want to avoid voting on that legislation. I guess the other question is, what happens if the administration doesn't follow any of the suggestions in this non-binding resolution? What's the recourse?
There's a time limit on the resolution, and if the administration does not adhere to that time limit, then we will deal with the issue at that time.
Okay, so in other words, nothing. But let me ask another question. Since this can't be brought up for debate tomorrow, or tonight. What day next week will this be on the floor?
Well, that will be announced.
When?
And the majority leader will make that announcement.
So can you guarantee us and to everybody watching that this will absolutely be brought up on the floor next week?
That's the majority leader's decision to make.
Yeah. I mean, millions of people are focused on this issue, and millions of people are angry that there's been inaction, and so we have a non-binding resolution that doesn't have the force of law, and we can't get a guarantee or even a guesstimate as to when this might be brought up. And furthermore, we can debate the rule on this non-binding resolution, but that's it. There's no debate like we have on most bills where people can get up and and discuss the pros and cons and what this bill means. I got to tell you, I don't think. I get it. I mean, this is a loophole. This is cover, and I get it. My friends on the committee who voted against trying to do something more significant, not only in this committee but also on the House floor. Are getting some pushback from your constituents. I get it, but I got to tell you, I don't think your constituents are a cheap date. I think they will see this for what it is. But Madam Chair, in a moment, I'm going to offer an amendment to the rule which will strike the brand-new non-binding resolution on Epstein and instead provide for immediate consideration of H.R. 4405, the Bipartisan Epstein Files Transparency Act introduced by Representatives Khanna and Massey. I've been listening to what people have to say about releasing the Epstein files, and I'm sure you have as well. People don't want more empty promises of future action. They've seen this movie before. They know how it ends. They want direct, decisive action by Congress, and they want it now. So let me explain this to people at home. This resolution they are offering is a cover vote, and I'll be surprised if they even bring it to the floor. It's Republicans pretending to do something because they're feeling heat at home. The bipartisan bill that we are offering, H.R. 4405, isn't another empty promise. Like your resolution, which again, your leadership may never even bring to the floor, and I'm surprised that you're coming to the Rules Committee without a date certain when this is coming up. But what we're doing with the Khanna-Massey bill is not kicking the can down the road. It is a bipartisan bill that would direct the Attorney General to release the Epstein files within 30 days. It details exactly which records to release and ensures nothing is hidden to protect people in power while protecting the privacy of the victims. If you've been listening to your constituents this week, you know that this bill is what they're asking for, not some weak, non-binding resolution to protect yourselves from an awkward vote. So a vote for my amendment is a vote to bring a bipartisan bill to the floor that would actually release the Epstein files and not the glorified press release that you are proposing today. A vote against my amendment is a vote to give Republican members a fig leaf so they can move on from this issue like President Trump asked them to do. Now, we may hear arguments from Republicans that this amendment isn't technically germane, and I can understand why you'll try to hide behind germaneness because you don't want to take this vote. But the Rules Committee has a long history of allowing votes on non-germane amendments, including when I was chair, and allowed Republicans to offer amendments on resolutions of inquiry. We took the votes. That's what we do here in the Rules Committee. Germaneness was never enforced on minority motions. So don't pretend that we cannot add this bill to the rule. Of course we can. You could have done it yourselves, or you could do it right now by voting for my amendment. It's that simple. The fact of the matter is, you don't want to vote on actually releasing the Epstein files, not up here and not on the floor. And what are you afraid of? And for anyone who raises a point of order on germaneness, just know that you're going to be extra famous for going above and beyond to block this bill from going to the floor. If one of you drew the short straw and makes a point of order, and this amendment is ruled out of order, I intend to appeal the ruling of the chair to ensure that this bill will come to the floor. So let me be clear. A vote against appealing the ruling of the chair is a vote to block the bipartisan bill to actually release the Epstein files. And look, all of you know what the right thing to do is here. Listen to your constituents, listen to your conscience. Don't get bullied by your leadership and by this president. Why would anybody want to stop this bill from getting a vote? And so I hope my Republican colleagues have been listening to their constituents. Madam Chair, I have an amendment to the rule. I move the committee strike all after the resolve clause of the rule, which deems as adopted a brand new non-binding resolution on Epstein and instead provides for the immediate consideration of H.R. 4405, the Bipartisan Epstein Files Transparency Act, under a closed rule with 1 hour of debate.
Mr. McGovern, again, you're trying to characterize how we vote and why we vote, but it's very interesting to see you suddenly express interest in Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, given that President Biden had 4 years to take meaningful action and did nothing. Unfortunately, our colleagues tried to weaponize this discussion earlier this week as an attempt to derail the passage of the most significant crypto legislation in history. The amendments offered earlier this week were significantly lacking in protections for victims, whistleblowers, and innocent witnesses. I support this resolution, which we've introduced tonight, which requires the release of credible information, protects whistleblowers and victims of sexual abuse, and finally allows the whole world to review the full details of everyone involved in the heinous acts connected to Jeffrey Epstein. It's clear this resolution is entirely necessary, and it's a good faith effort that's rooted in accountability in the right ways and for the right reasons, unlike the prank Democrats pulled earlier this week. I look forward to working with the Trump administration to ensure that justice is finally served.
Madam Chair, with just all due respect, the bill that we're offering does provide protections for victims, number one. And number two, it wasn't Democrats that have been weaponizing this for years. It has been Republicans, including the President of the United States, including the current director of the FBI, including every kind of MAGA, right-wing influencer has been talking about releasing these files. And so, again, with all due respect, I urge that my colleagues support our amendment, and I'm happy to.
Madam Chair, is the amendment a bill?
It's a bill.
It is a bill, okay. And Madam Chair, unless I'm mistaken, a bill would then actually have to go to the Senate and then would be subject to signature of the President of the United States. Is that correct? And therefore, if his amendment is adopted, it would be weeks before, months, actually, before anything would be done, because it would have to go to the Senate, and it would be subject to the signature of the President of the United States. Is that correct, Madam Chair?
That is correct.
Yeah,
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we know who's playing the game.
And it would have the power of a law. Your bill has
only
no power
upon
at
the
all.
signature of the President.
Can the gentleman give me the date that he intends to bring up his non-binding resolution to the floor? Can you tell us we're going to be in next week?
We've told you that will be up to the majority
you told me
leader.
that it's up to the majority leader. It's hard for me to believe that nobody asked the majority leader when you intend to bring this up. I mean, that's not a hard question. We're not, you noticed us what was coming up to the Rules Committee next week. Much ado about nothing. So I mean, and you've limited debate on this so that we only have an hour on the rule. So clearly, it's not like it's a timing issue. So I think it would be helpful to know that question. Maybe while we're having this debate, someone can call the majority leader's office and maybe get an answer.
Again, Madam Chair, I just want to make sure I understand. His motion, if adopted, would then send the piece of legislation to the Senate, and that would be months, and it would be the Senate majority leader then that would have to schedule for a piece of legislation to go, the piece of legislation to go to the floor, and then it would be subject to the signature of the President of the United States. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure I was correct about what your motion actually does instead of what you're saying it does.
Why don't we put it on the floor to see whether we get a veto-proof majority? Your bill does nothing. It's a resolution. It's a glorified press release. And you may be satisfied with that. Maybe you know some people who have been reaching out to you and putting pressure on you to do something might be satisfied with that. I'm willing to bet you the majority of people who are watching this, including Republicans, will not be satisfied.
Facts are separate things, aren't they? Your proposal requires months and requires the signature of the President.
It doesn't require months. It can move quickly. The Senate could take this up immediately if they want to. Yours requires 30 days.
Mr. McGovern, this is a very similar document to what you offered on Monday, and it is.
I don't think the point of order is timely anymore, Madam. So I insist on a vote on
on your amendment. Okay.
Before we take that vote, may I be heard?
The question.
Yeah.
Well, he's asked for a vote on his motion, and I'm going to call for a vote on his motion, since he has done that.
We would like.
So the question. The question is on the amendment from Mr. McGovern. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. No.
I ask for a
In the
roll call.
opinion, Chair, the noes have it. The amendment's not agreed to. The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? Mr. Roy, no. Mrs. Houchin? Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott? Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack? Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern?
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse? Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Ledger Fernandez? Ms. Ledger Fernandez, aye. And Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
The clerk will report the total.
4 yeas, 9 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Madam Chair, I have another amendment to the rule. I move the committee add a new section to the rule providing for immediate consideration of H.R. 4405, the bipartisan Epstein Epstein Files Transparency Act, under a closed rule with 1 hour of debate. Okay, you didn't want to replace your non-binding resolution. Fair enough, I guess. How about also providing for consideration of a bill that would actually release the Epstein files? Again, I ask again, why would anybody be against bringing this bill to the floor? You can bring both.
Point of parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. Griffith.
I'm trying to figure out where we are, Madam Chair, and we didn't have a written copy of the previous amendment. I don't have a written copy of this one. Is this amendment different than the previous amendment?
Yes.
And which bill? I thought the original amendment was.
This one allows your non-binding, meaningless resolution and a real bill with the force of law. So you debate two.
But it's the same bill that you were talking about previously.
Correct.
All right. That was my inquiry, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Which has been available for 2 days online, unlike your resolution.
And unlike your amendment of last week or earlier this week. Madam Chair, point of order.
Mr. Griffith.
Is this amendment germane to the resolution we're
Madam Chair, that's
considering?
not a timely point of order.
I'm sorry?
It's not a timely point of order.
Point
A
of,
discussion and, you know.
the previous was a point of parliamentary inquiry. Now I'm doing a point of order. I discussed the parliamentary inquiry so I could figure out what we're doing.
Nobody reserved a point of order.
Mr. McGovern, you did not give us something in writing which caused confusion among the members, and therefore there were questions being asked. So it is a timely point of order.
Madam Chair, I disagree with the assertions of the ranking member because of the confusion. How can I make a point of order when I don't know what we're doing because I don't have it in writing? I could not make a point or reserve a point on something I don't know what it is. Now I know what it is, I make a point of order.
I agree with Mr. Griffith that you created confusion, Mr. McGovern. Therefore, the committee will suspend. The committee will suspend while we try to sort out the confusion you've created. The rule provides for consideration of our resolution, not a bill. Therefore, the amendment is not germane.
I appeal the ruling of the chair.
Mr. McGovern appeals the ruling of the chair. The question is on the appeal of the ruling of the chair. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion, Chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Ask for a roll call.
The gentleman asked for a roll call. The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? No. Mr. Roy, no. Mrs. Houchin? No. Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott? No. Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? No. Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack? No. Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern?
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Aye. Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse? Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Ledger Fernandez?
Point of order.
It's a vote.
Ms. Ledger Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
Clerk will report the total.
4 yeas, 9 nays.
And noes have it. The appeal of the ruling of the chair is not agreed to.
Yeah,
Is there any
yes,
other
yes.
amendment or
Yes,
discussion?
and I've never seen I've never seen a majority in this committee so intent on trying to deny anything from coming to the floor for a real debate and vote. But in a moment, I'm going to offer.
Point of order.
I'm going to offer an amendment. What's the point of order?
I thought the gentleman was recognized for amendment, and yet he's speaking on the amendment before it's been
That's
offered,
right.
so I
He
don't
said
really speak.
discussion or amendment.
You don't have an amendment.
We don't have an amendment in
No,
front of us.
Yes, I'm in a moment, I'm going to offer an amendment to convert this non-binding resolution to an actual bill that could have the force of law. This non-binding resolution is completely meaningless, as I've said. If you actually want the Epstein files to become public, pass an actual bill that can become law. Make this real. Again, my motion will be to provide a rule for your own text, as flawed as it is, just as a bill instead of a resolution. And a no vote on my motion would just show that you don't actually want the Epstein files to be released. So, Madam Chair, I have an amendment to the rule. I move the committee strike all after the resolve clause of the rule, which deems as adopted a brand-new non-binding resolution on Epstein, and instead provide for immediate consideration of the same exact text converted to an actual bill, an HR instead of an HRES, under a closed rule with 1 hour of debate.
Point of order. Germaneness.
Griffith?
And if I'm allowed to speak to the germaneness,
You are allowed to speak.
the reason I made my objection earlier is, and maybe the Rules Committee does things differently than most legislative bodies, but you put the amendment out there first so that if there's a point of order, the whole point of a point of order, and the reason that Jefferson gave the rules in the parliamentary practice and procedure by Jefferson is to make this place efficient. Instead of having speeches given on something that's not in order, you're supposed to cut to the chase. And this is not germane, and it shouldn't have a soliloquy going in front of it. I yield.
I agree with Mr. Griffith. The rule provides for consideration of one resolution, not a bill. Therefore, the amendment is not germane.
I appeal the ruling of the chair.
I
want everybody on record on these things, so I appeal the ruling of the chair.
The question is on the appeal of the ruling of the chair. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
Would like a roll call, please.
Mr. McGovern requests a roll call. The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? No. Mr. Roy, no. Mrs. Houchin? No. Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott? No. Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? No. Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack? Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern?
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse? Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Ledger-Fernandez? Aye. Ms. Ledger-Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
Clerk will report the total.
4 yeas, 9 nays.
And the noes have it. The appeal of the ruling of the chair is not agreed to.
And Madam Chair, I just, again, want to reiterate the point I made earlier. I've been on this committee for a long time, and I've never seen anything quite like this. And it is really disappointing. I yield back. I know others may have something to say.
Madam Chair, can I speak to the?
You're recognized, Ms. Scanlon.
Thank you. I mean, I do think it's important that we add a little context here. Mr. McGovern has mentioned that our constituents are saying they want to see the release of the Epstein files. I suspect your constituents are saying the same thing, and that's why it is important that this be something that actually has the force of law rather than the glorified press release that doesn't even have to go to the Senate, as Rep. Scott so kindly pointed out. But while we've been here, there's a little additional context that's been added, so I'd seek unanimous consent to enter a Wall Street Journal article dated today, July 17th. It was released at 6:45 p.m. after we started here. It's entitled, "Jeffrey Epstein's Friends Sent Him Bawdy Letters for a 50th Birthday Album. One was from Donald Trump," and there's a fairly interesting, some might even say titillating article attached. But so I would seek unanimous consent to enter that in the record.
Without objection.
Thank you. And I think it really goes to the question that is sort of consuming the country at this point, which is, what did the president know and when did he know it?
Thank you, Ms. Scanlon. Does any other member wish to speak? Mr. Norman.
You know, as the chair brought up, this is really kind of hypocritical for y'all at this point. You've had 4 years to bring it up. Where was your inquiry then? Where were the facts? As you know, the public's not letting this die. This is coming out. And so as that article, now the president's saying it's artificial intelligence, that will be proven in due time. But this has got a date on it. This has got a date, and it contains most of the things that Massey and Rokana had. I thought Mr. Neguse had a good point about some language in here that you thought was, I think it was some of the information could be excluded. But bottom line, this is going to be debated in the public. It's got a 30-day time limit on it. And it's got a 30-day time limit.
For vote.
You know, that's not for me to call, Mr. And I'm not going to debate you on this. All I'm going to say is this, I know y'all's intent. Had it been important during a previous administration, you would be, you know, on it as you would have so many other things. You didn't care. This is after one man, and it's going to come out. The Wall Street Journal, you're going to have other things, and that would be debated in the public. So I don't know, you know, I just, I guess it's what you want is just you're hammering on this because you think you've got some political gain on it. The American people are going to judge the end results of this. And I think when all the facts come out, let them judge it. All of us want transparency. And so, you know, I think had you brought this up over the previous years, this president's been in office now for 4 months, 5 months. And you've ripped him apart when you could, but it's not working, and the American people know it. This is going to come out. We would not have even brought this up if it would. I yield back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Norman. Any further discussion? Hearing none.
No, Res.
Oh, sorry, Ms. Ledger Fernandez. Sorry, Mr. Neguse.
Joe was first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess first, just a couple of questions that I think our side of the aisle, as we're reviewing the resolution that we just received, you know, about 15 minutes ago, have. I think the first that Mr. McGovern was articulating, and there was a bit of an exchange back and forth, and so I do think it's helpful to clarify this for the public. The resolution, and maybe this is a question for Mr. Griffith or for Mr. Norman, the resolution that's been introduced, does it have the force of law? That is to say, it's a resolution, right? So it's not a bill. This was the exchange that Mr. Scott and Mr. McGovern were having, Ranking Member McGovern were having. Because it's not a bill, while I understand the resolution includes language like shall, sort of directing the Attorney General, is it your position that the resolution functions as a bill? I guess I'm trying to understand how this would enact any kind of compliance from the department. Because it's a sense of Congress, essentially. And so how does the administration, if it passes the House, is the Attorney General legally obligated to then comply with the sense of Congress?
And if I might, Madam Chair.
I'm happy to yield.
Mr. Griffith?
I would submit to the gentleman that part of the concern, same concern I have with CRAs, is that if it's a bill, it has to go to the president, who appoints the Attorney General for signature. It's always going to be an issue. The legislative body needs to make decisions for itself. This calls on them to take action 30 days after passage, and then further, we put this in there specifically to try to answer that question. I'm looking on page 5 of this draft. Urges the relevant House committees to initiate formal investigations into any obstruction, suppression, or delay of the file's release. So while it would be accurate that a bill would have the full force and effect of law, what this says on behalf of the House is that should we not get the information that we are saying needs to be released, demands that it be released, that we would then urge all relevant House committees. Unfortunately, the Rules Committee is not in a position to demand. We are urging, and if the body does it, they've got a little bit more clout, but we're urging all relevant House committees, and we you know, in my own mind, I at least debated, and I think some of the others were in agreement on this. Jurisdiction may be judiciary, it may be oversight. The bottom line is, House committees are being urged to initiate formal investigations to any obstruction, suppression, or delay of the files release of the Epstein information related to the charges in the investigation into both him and his sidekick.
I want to reclaim. Thank you, Mr. Griffith. And I mean it in all sincerity. I just know the chair I'm going to get in trouble with the chair.
I understand.
Too long. So I guess what I would just suggest is that if we know that a bill has the force of law, that there is no wiggle room, that the Attorney General would be required to comply with a bill because it's a federal statute, if in fact it makes its way through the entire process. And we have a bill that Mr. Massey, Republican, has introduced. That, I think, is the vehicle, not a resolution that is a sense of Congress that ultimately, I hear your point, you know, the accountability mechanism that you put in the bill, which is essentially urging the committees to investigate. I'm sure you could recognize the skepticism, you know, we would have on our side of the aisle. I'm sure you feel the same way about, you know, the Republican-controlled Congress investigating, you know, the president and taking that step. But my view is that is the most salient difference here, is that Mr. Massey and Mr. Khanna's bill has the force of law. There is no escaping it. The president, the Attorney General, would have to comply with it. The second thing I would say is there are two provisions in the resolution that concern me. There was a reference to this by Mr. Norman. One is that in the permitted withholdings section, and neither of these are in Mr. Massey and Mr. Khanna's resolution, the language says that the Attorney General may withhold or redact the segregable portions of records that, and then you go to subsection G, subparagraph G, are demonstrably false or unauthenticated. So basically what this resolution says is that if Attorney General Bondi decides that there's information in the file, or in those files that she thinks is false or unauthenticated, that information would then not be published to Congress or to the American people. The President of the United States right now, tonight, is posting on Truth Social and elsewhere that the Wall Street Journal article that was just quoted by Ms. Scanlon, that's fake, that's false, is what he's claiming, which means that that's the exact type of information that the Attorney General could deem excludable from any kind of provisioning to the public. And so what I had said to Mr. Norman is while I understand some of these other provisions that quote specifically the federal rules of criminal procedure, for example, grand jury testimony, I think that provision is problematic. The second provision that I think is problematic is subsection F. Subsection F, again, this is the Attorney General may withhold or redact the segregable portions of records that contain information specifically authorized under criteria established by an executive order to be kept secret in the interest of national defense or foreign policy and are in fact properly classified pursuant to such executive order. The issue is there's no standards by which we can evaluate the propriety of the president's executive order. So if the president issued an executive order tomorrow and establishes criteria in his own judgment, says, I think that the criteria should be A, B, and C, and that if it qualifies for A, B, and C, it's in the national interest, the national defense of our country, that should be excluded, then they can exclude it. And I guess my point would be, and you can, if I'm inaccurate about this, I mean this in good faith. If this language is in the Massey resolution, excuse me, the Massey bill, and I'm mistaken on that, but I don't think, it's not. And so I think those provisions are problematic the way that they have been framed and phrased. And I think had they been constructed specific to federal statute, similar to the rule of 6E of Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure with respect to grand juries, then I think it'd be a different story. But I am concerned about those provisions, and so and I'm happy to yield to the ranking member.
I thank the gentleman. I just wanted to, there's nothing in this resolution that directs any committees to do any investigations. And
if the gentleman would yield. If the
Yeah,
gentleman would yield.
Let me finish my thought.
Let's be careful. I'll recognize.
He yielded to me.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, and there's nothing here that, in your resolution,
You're
that
right.
instructs committees to do anything. And I don't want you to sell the Rules Committee short, because the Rules Committee has a lot more power than I think you realize. And if you look at the rule book, Rule 10, Clause 1, the jurisdiction of this Rules Committee is primarily over propositions to make or change the rules, to create committees, and to direct them to make investigations. So we have the power to do that if we wanted to. And I just wanted to make, because I'm very proud to be a member of this committee, and I think it has a lot more power than sometimes people give it credit of having, so.
And Madam, if the gentleman would yield to me, I would appreciate it. The ranking member is correct. I misstated the bill. I apologize for that. I recognized it, which is why when he started talking, I said, hey, wait a minute. I was trying to get in, but I did misstate the language of the bill, but it certainly is the intent of the bill is that if action is not taken, there will be subsequent action. And whatever appropriate committee it's supposed to be in, that's where we will take it. And so I apologize to those members that I've looked at a lot of different things today, and I got my wires crossed, and that's my fault and nobody else's. So I take responsibility for that, and I apologize to the members of the committee that I made a mistake. It was not an intentional misleading of this committee. I would hope that you all know I would never intentionally do it. I might be wrong, but at the time I say something, I think it's accurate, and I did not mean to mislead this committee, and I apologize.
No offense taken, and I thank the gentleman as well. And again, I would just say, I think that I've articulated, in my view, the many different provisions of this resolution that are problematic. And I guess I would just say that, in closing, there's a Republican-led Republican-led bill by Mr. Massey. It has the support of multiple Republicans in your caucus. It certainly has the support of Democrats as well. It's bipartisan. It has the force of law. And I think it deserves a vote on the floor. And I hope my colleagues will join us in signing the discharge petition for that bill as I will.
Mr. Neguse, Section F and Section G are both in the Massey resolution.
No, they're not. Madam Chair, I have the Massey.
Can you point me to the?
I'm not sure if they're in exactly the same place, but my understanding is that those two clauses are in the Massey resolution.
And I think the gentleman, I will look, I have the resolution here, so I will circle back.
Thank you.
I would just add for clarification, I don't believe G is in there. I think F, I believe F is in there in slightly different wording without the executive order first sentence with some national security language behind that, which is language that is similar. And I get that your point is that the executive order.
That's the point. It's not that there are, so I guess if the chairman would indulge me, and only 30 seconds, but yes, subsection G is not in the Massey resolution. That language is not, and it's not rooted in any statutory basis. So that it's just the idea that the Attorney General gets to decide what she believes is false, and she can exclude it. And then with respect to the national security piece, I certainly concede. I'm not suggesting, and you're right, looking at the Massey resolution, Mr. Roy, that it does include a national security provision, but it does not provide this broad flexibility to issue the executive order. That was my issue. But anyway, I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neguse.
Madam Chair?
Ms. Leisure-Fernandez, you recognize.
I'd like to begin by yielding time to my ranking member.
Again, I think it's important. You could have instructed committees of jurisdiction to investigate, and you chose not to. But I just also want to make the point that we just gave you the opportunity to take your exact language, as flawed as it is, and give it the force of law. And you all voted against that. I think that speaks volumes. And I thank the gentlelady for yielding, and I yield back.
Thank you, Ranking Member. I think that is precisely the issue that we are discussing. There is a bill that contains much of the same language, not exactly, that would have the force of law. And this committee, the Rules Committee, has the power to require that it be taken up immediately. And this committee is rejecting that. You rejected a motion before, and you have rejected an amendment which would require that H.R. 4405, which has the force of law, to require that the Epstein files be released, subject to the redactions. Mr. Scott had pointed out that there was no protection for the victims, and I will read from H.R. 4405, the
You did
law,
not offer
the post of law,
HR.
it says the,
You did not offer that.
Mr. Scott.
You did not
Mr.
offer
Scott,
that on Monday.
Madam Chair,
Mr.
order. Madam Chair, order.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
do not appreciate being
Yes,
yelled at.
I don't
because
appreciate
I
being
was
lied about.
Mr.
Mr.
Scott, you are not
please.
being recognized. This is my time, Mr. Scott. I am speaking. I am speaking, and what I am pointing out is that there was a motion to include a enforceable law to be voted on by the House of Representatives as to whether the House of Representatives, including every single Democrat and Republican in the House of Representatives, would require the release of the Epstein files. And you've rejected that. And in that law that was the subject of the motion that you all voted no on, it did indeed protect the identity of the victims at C parens 1A. It did protect the identity of the victims. So this law that would have the force of law that could go to the floor and be voted on, you have rejected. And with regards to the additional point of whether the rules could require that any committee take this up, they already could require that any of the committees that are controlled by Republicans right now could take up the issue of whether or not the files are being withheld, manipulated. That is some of the oversight that this Congress is not doing of this administration. So you have the power and you have the ability to vote on it. So once again, to summarize, this committee has the power to require that an enforceable law be taken up and voted on. The language is the same, but you are instead choosing to move forward on some indefinite time. We're going to go home. It's going to be 6 weeks before we come back. On some indefinite time that there might be a vote. You're not even requiring, if you cared enough about this, you would have negotiated, because you've been negotiating all day today, haven't you? We haven't been in this Rules Committee because you've been negotiating, and I'm not going to say where you could, but somebody negotiating, if I were in there negotiating, perhaps I would have required that there be a date certain by which this was heard, would have required that it be something enforceable, would have required that it not be basically a loophole that you could drive a parade through, let alone a Mack truck. The loopholes in here are huge. The whole resolution is huge. And I think that the issue with regards to what was reported in the Wall Street Journal, the key thing about that is that report discusses a birthday card that was sent after Epstein had already been indicted the first time around. And I would like to now see if any of my colleagues would like any additional time. And yield to my dear colleague from Colorado.
I think the gentlewoman, I certainly agree with all of her sentiments, and I think in real time now, I suspect some of my colleagues might talk about this, the announcement on social media regarding grand jury materials that the Department of Justice may seek to unseal. And I think, if anything, it's emblematic of the prior conversation we were having, because the grand jury provision that's in the resolution, which would exclude all grand jury material, was not in the Massey resolution, Massey bill, I should say. And now, obviously, this latest development, in some respects, adds to this conversation. So I think, again, it's a reminder that the provisions in this resolution I think are problematic.
Right, and the other problem about this resolution, and this is the issue, is right now it's the Attorney General who has refused to release the files, to release whatever information it is. And so their non-binding resolution gives all the authority to the Attorney General and the President, who can then continue to obfuscate, continue reviews. And I think that this is one of those issues where the voters are smarter than this. The voters can read through something that is non-binding, that doesn't require, that is simply, somebody called it a glorified press release, right? I think the voters are smarter than that and will recognize that what has been presented here, it's a bunch of words on paper that are not enforceable. And there's not even a date when the House will take it up. In every other rule that we've passed in this House, it goes, we know when it's going to be heard. It's going to be heard tomorrow, or it's going to be heard Wednesday. We got a schedule. We know it's on. And once again, Madam Chair, we have no schedule for this. Is that correct?
Well, Ms. Leisure-Fernandez, I think what we're going to see is that this resolution has had much more of an impact than you are giving it credit for. And so I would suggest that we fairly soon have a vote on this, and then we move on, because I believe we will get the results that we want, which is a clear exposition of any materials that are out there regarding Jeffrey Epstein. So, thank you all.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question was whether there was a date for this resolution to be heard.
I'm saying to you, yes, there is a date, not a date necessarily when this is going to be heard next week on the floor, but there was a date in the resolution. And as I said, I believe what you're going to learn shortly is that the effect of this resolution is much stronger than any of you had expected it to have.
So there is no date for this to be heard. There is a date that is on the paper here, but that date goes from, that date doesn't begin to we don't count the dates until we actually pass the resolution. So if we don't have a date for the passing of resolution, it could be never. I guess that's the problem, is there is no date. And I'll yield to a colloquy with I've never gotten to have a colloquy with you.
I'm honored.
Friend from Colorado, and I know you love doing that. I yield to you.
I'm honored, and I guess perhaps close the hearing shortly here in the same fashion in which we started it, which was Mr. Norman. I think he said this isn't going away, and I completely agree with him. And what I would say is, we're talking about operative dates. The operative date is that the Tom Massey Ro Khanna bill and the discharge petition that Mr. Massey has filed will become ripe. And, I'm hoping that votes are scheduled tomorrow so that that petition becomes ripe next week so that we can vote on it. But irrespective of the Republican calendar and how votes are calendared, it will become ripe soon. And every member of the House will have an opportunity to weigh in one way or the other as to whether or not to sign onto that bipartisan bill that Mr. Massey has introduced, and I'm certainly supportive of it.
The gentleman would say.
I yield back to the gentleman.
Well, I would also suggest that perhaps everybody who is supportive of this House resolution non-binding and believes that it is important to have that information released could go sign that discharge petition. You have power here, but you also have power by signing the discharge petition, ranking member.
I was just going to ask the same question. With a show of hands, how many of you are going to sign the discharge petition?
We've all signed it.
I mean, okay, nobody, okay. But there'll be a bipartisan discharge petition that will be ripe, and you'll be able to sign it when you come back from your break. And I hope that you will all sign it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'd also, as the old attorney, I'd like to point out, let the record reflect that not a single one of the Republicans on the committee raised their hands in favor of the discharge petition. Not a single one of the members in the committee were willing to support the binding law if it were to pass, of the Massey Kana HR 4405. And with that, Madam Chair, I yield back.
Hearing no further discussion, the question is on the motion from the gentleman from Georgia. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no.
No.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion is agreed to.
Madam Chair, I ask for roll call.
A recorded vote has been requested. The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach?
Yes.
Mrs. Fishbach, yes. Mr. Norman? Mr. Norman, aye. Mr. Roy? Aye. Mr. Roy, aye. Mrs. Houchin? Mrs. Houchin, aye. Mr. Langworthy? Mr. Langworthy, aye. Mr. Scott? Aye. Mr. Scott, aye. Mr. Griffith? Mr. Griffith, aye. Mr. Jack?
Aye.
Mr. Jack, aye. Mr. McGovern?
No.
Mr. McGovern, no. Ms. Scanlon? Ms. Scanlon, no. Mr. Neguse? Mr. Neguse, no. Ms. Ledger Fernandez? Ms. Ledger Fernandez, no. Madam Chair?
Aye.
Madam Chair, aye.
The clerk will report the total.
9 yeas, 4 nays.
And the motion is agreed to. Accordingly, the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Scott, will be managing this rule for the majority.
And I'll manage it for the minority if we ever get to it.
The chair will be in receipt of a motion from the gentleman from
Griffin.
Virginia.
We don't have the
Thank
other
you.
rule, Madam Chair. Okay, all right.
It's right there.
Well, okay. Joe.
Madam Chair.
What's this? How many do we need? Is she going to do public broadcasting? Yeah, good. All right, I'll keep that.
Mr. Griffith, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee grant a rule providing that the House shall be considered to have taken from the Speaker's table H.R. 4, the Rescissions Act of 2025 with the Senate amendment thereto, and to have concurred in the Senate amendment.
I need to make a statement before we move further.
Okay.
Attempts to amend this legislation at this stage in the process is solely to delay implementation of responsible governance and fiscal sanity. And my colleagues are aware any amendment will compromise the privilege of this legislation in the Senate. Additionally, this is not an arbitrary deadline. It's essential that this legislation be signed into law by this weekend. Further, any amendments to this package regarding Jeffrey Epstein are not germane. This Congress, we've enacted historic savings for the American people, and we must act swiftly to hold Washington accountable and prioritize bloated government spending on programs that actually benefit taxpayers. So we have an amendment. We have a motion from the gentleman from Virginia. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, Madam Chair, first of all, let me again express my concern about this committee. I mean, we are bringing a bill to the floor under martial law, and we're not even allowing for there to be an hour of debate. And this is a bill that is going to adversely impact millions of people. It involves everything from public broadcasting to international health programs that actually save lives. And we're just going to kind of rush it through. And again, I think this is a lousy precedent. I think this is not the way, on something this big. I mean, you heard the appropriations chair, ranking member, and the chair of the subcommittee. They have strong views on this. So do a whole bunch of other members in this chamber. And so I'm expressing my frustration not just at the process, but at the integrity of this committee. And I have an amendment to the rule. I move that the committee make an order amendment number 6, offered by Representative Cisneros, which would strike the rescission of the International Disaster Assistance funding and provide for the funding level passed by the Senate Appropriations Committee for fiscal year 2025. Worldwide, 300 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance due to natural or man-made causes. A third of these are in or displaced from Sudan. Hundreds of millions of children, 1 in 5 kids globally, are living in or fleeing from war zones. This amendment would protect funds for health and shelter for vulnerable people and their children fleeing dangerous conditions. And if basic humanity doesn't sway you, international disaster funds help improve our own national security, and I urge a yes vote.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, the question's on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment's not
I ask for a
agreed
roll
to.
call, Madam Chair.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? No. Mr. Roy, no. Mrs. Houchin? No. Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott? No. Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? No. Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack? No. Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern?
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Aye. Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse? Aye. Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Ledger Fernandez? Aye. Ms. Ledger Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
The clerk will report the total.
4 yeas, 9 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Madam Chair, I have another amendment to the rule. I move the committee make an order amendment number 10 to the Senate amendment to H.R. 4 offered by Representative Johnson, which strikes the rescission of funds from the bilateral economic assistance funds appropriated to the President global health programs. I wish I could be specific about the devastating impact that these cuts will have. And let me be clear, cuts of this amount to these programs will be devastating. But as we heard in this hearing, the White House hasn't told us exactly what they intend to cut. This is a guessing game. This is an abdication of our duty here in Congress, and lives will be lost because of it. I urge a yes vote on my amendment. I yield back.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, the question's on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment's not agreed.
I ask for a roll call, Madam Chair.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? No. Mr. Roy, no. Mrs. Houchin? Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott? No. Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? No. Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack? No. Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern?
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Aye. Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse? Aye. Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Ledger Fernandez? Aye. Ms. Ledger Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
The clerk will report the total.
4 yeas, 9 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Madam Chair, I have an amendment to the rule. I move the committee make an order amendment number 3 to the Senate amendment to H.R. 4 offered by Representative Titus, which strikes the paragraph that rescinds funding for the Assistance for Europe, Eurasia, and Central Asia account. Madam Chair, this awful bill will decimate support for Ukraine and partners in the region facing Russian aggression. I find it disgusting that Republicans in Congress have decided to cozy up with Putin and totally abandon the people of Ukraine. Ukraine and neighboring countries are defending fundamental freedoms, and the United States of America, under Republican control, is turning its back on them. I urge a yes vote on my amendment, and I yield back.
Is there further discussion? Hearing none, the question is on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is
Ask for a roll call, Madam Chair.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? Mr. Roy, no. Mrs. Houchin? No. Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott? No. Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? No. Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack? No. Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern?
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Aye. Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse? Aye. Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Ledger Fernandez? Ms. Ledger Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
Clerk report the total.
4 yeas, 9 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment's not agreed to. Ms. Ledger Fernandez, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to make an order amendment number 2 to H.R. 4. I move the committee make an order amendment number 2 to the Senate amendment to H.R. 4 offered by Representative Goldman, which strikes the provisions that rescind funds for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. As we discussed earlier today, those funds are incredibly popular. Americans want us to continue funding the Corporation for Public Broadcasting for everything that it does that is in the good of the public, from making sure we have great educational programming to making sure that we have public radio stations in places like Alaska and Kansas and Nebraska, Colorado and New Mexico that aren't normally served by other radio stations, especially to get local news, to get emergency services. I would also point out, Madam Chair, that you made reference earlier to the fact that there was going to be something coming of the discussion we were having, and I noticed that President Trump is actually watching this and tweeted out with a picture of this committee that he was going to require that there be a grand jury testimony released. But I would note that in the Massey-Kana bill, it's not just grand jury testimony. There's so much more that is required. What about the travel logs? What about what happened around the suicide? What happens around everything? And so this limited disclosure of material is not what would be included in the Epstein Transparency Act, which we should all support so that the full record is released.
Yeah, and
I would yield to my good friend from Colorado.
Yeah, and just thank you to the gentleman for yielding the time. The point that I was trying to articulate earlier is this precise point that Ms. Ledger-Fernandez just said, which is that the announcement from the President and from the Attorney General, this information is the very same information that would not have been allowed to be released under paragraph D of the resolution that was just deemed included in the rule. So that's the grand jury information that the Attorney General says online, we'll see if she does this, that indicates she will seek a court order to release, right, protected grand jury information. That information is not allowed to be disclosed, or it's at least it's a permitted area of segregation of records under the resolution. So
I'd like to yield to a ranking.
I yield back.
Yeah, and again, I want to associate myself with your remarks, and I'm not going to hold my breath that this administration on its own is going to do anything to shine light on the Epstein files. But in any event, to the amendment at hand, I want to point out to my colleagues that this bill fully eliminates federal funding for public TV and radio for the next 2 years. These are trusted sources of news and educational programming for millions of households. 42 million people listen to public radio weekly. 70% of the funding goes directly to over 1,500 locally owned public TV and radio stations across this country. This funding is particularly critical in rural areas where public stations are often the only source of local news. Just yesterday, after an earthquake and tsunami warning in Alaska, Senator Murkowski thanked local public broadcasting stations for, and I quote, giving Alaskans real-time updates and keeping us safe, end quote, and called for the Senate to vote down these misguided cuts. And I urge a yes vote on the Ledger-Fernandez amendment, and I yield back my time.
Thank you, Ranking Member, for supporting this, because indeed we know that these radio stations are both beloved and essential. They are the public good, and we should be supporting those things which make America really a place of kindness and information and support for our public. And with that, Madam Chair, I yield back.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, the question's on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
As for roll call.
Roll call vote.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach?
No.
Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? No. Mr. Roy, no. Mrs. Houchin? No. Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott? No. Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? No. Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack? Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern?
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scallon?
Aye.
Ms. Scallon, aye. Mr. Neguse?
Aye.
Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Ledger-Fernandez? Ms. Ledger-Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
Clerk will report the total.
4 yeas, 9 nays.
And the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. Is there further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, the question is on the motion from the gentleman from Virginia. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no.
No.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion is agreed
As
to.
for roll call vote.
Mr. McGovern asked for a roll call. The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? Aye. Mrs. Fishbach, aye. Mr. Norman? Mr. Norman, aye. Mr. Roy? Aye. Mr. Roy, aye. Mrs. Houchin? Mrs. Houchin, aye. Mr. Langworthy? Mr. Langworthy, aye. Mr. Scott? Mr. Scott, aye. Mr. Griffith? Mr. Griffith, aye. Mr. Jack? Mr. Jack, aye. Mr. McGovern?
No.
Mr. McGovern, no. Ms. Scanlon? No. Ms. Scanlon, no. Mr. Neguse?
No.
Mr. Neguse, no. Ms. Ledger Fernandez? No. Ms. Ledger Fernandez, no. Madam Chair?
Aye.
Madam Chair, aye.
The clerk will report the total.
9 yeas, 4 nays.
And the amendment is agreed to. The motion to report is agreed to. Accordingly, I'll be managing the rule for the majority
I will for the minority.
and Mr. McGovern for the minority,
Do we know when we're going to the floor?
right now. Without objection, the committee
Who
is,
said we're going to the floor now? The majority leader? Maybe you could ask him when we're bringing up the other bill. Okay, thank you.
the meeting is adjourned.
The record reflects.